Welcome in here to the Mike Rutherford Show. It's January 20th. It's Tuesday. It's Roman Kelly. It's Matt Childress here, coming to you live from 2:30 to 5:30 on the Big X 96.1 FM, 1450 AM. Live right now on YouTube, I believe, on TV, on the WBNA side of things, and, of course, here on 1450 and on 96.1. Thank you all so much for tuning in. Thank you all so much for listening. We want to first say, get all of your thoughts in now. Get all of your questions in now. Get all of your comments in now, because we're going to be leaning on you guys pretty heavily here today. Of course, as always, on our Game Day Men's Health text line at 502-414-1450. It's the Mike Rutherford Show, presented by United Mechanical, of course, and Nexus Plus. Matt, we're joined today by special guest Will Wigington in the studio here as well. I first want to ask you, Matt, how are you doing? Welcome in, and thank you for producing the show here today.
I'm good. I always love coming on, the Mike Rutherford Show with you and Mike, obviously minus Mike this week for a couple of days. So it's the Mike Rutherford Show Roman Kelly edition. Always fun to be a part of that. Always fun to help produce. Always fun to have Will Wigington in. I know that we'll all get into some nice little chatter and discourse throughout the show. Talk about college football playoff a little bit. Talk about some Louisville basketball, possibly some Louisville football stuff here in the future.
Yes, we will.
It's a good time.
I'm excited. It is. I'm excited as well. Thank you for that, Matt. Of course, that's pretty much a few of the topics that we're going to be getting into. We did mention in the Run-In with Roman show, I'll be heading out a little bit early, but we got Will in. We'll be sticking around. Will, how are you today, sir?
Doing pretty well. Cold, so I'm ready for March to come around, not only for the tournament, but for warmer weather. But besides that, doing great.
This is Will Wigington, owner and author of the LouisvillePost.com, a website in which he writes all about Louisville athletics, football, basketball, covers his thoughts, and kind of analyzes the state of those two teams throughout their seasons. If you want to go check him out there, also the host and co-host on the Real Spill podcast with myself and, of course, with Matt Childress, doing a new Louisville college basketball show where you guys can check those two out, chatting all things NCAA basketball. Will, thank you so much for coming in. I really appreciate you. We're here in the Louisville College of Business studios, something you know about. Cards fans, incubate your inner entrepreneur with Louisville's top-ranked Innovation MBA. In 12 months, gain the confidence and connections needed to spark your entrepreneurial spirit. Learn best practices from our award-winning faculty, serial entrepreneurs, venture capitalists, and national business leaders, and compete for thousands of dollars in startup funding and business competitions. Start your journey today. Visit business.louisville.edu/U of L MBA. Matt, Will, we're going to be getting into a few different things today. We're also going to have another special guest joining us on the Call Your Law Firm hotline as well. Mr. Rashawn Myers will be coming on to chat a little bit about his thoughts on the outcome of last night's game in the national championship. And then, of course, we're going to get some thoughts on Louisville basketball, where we kind of stand right now with that. Chat about Michael Brown Jr. as well. Get Matt, Will, and Rashawn's thoughts on those. Then some other topics we'll get into before I'll be heading out, and Matt and Will be taking over here today. Will, what did you think of the game last night? Indiana getting the job done. It feels crazy to say Indiana, IU, national champions in football, but what did you think of the game, and what do you think this means?
Yeah, it was a landmark victory for the sport, and I was telling my mom earlier, it felt surreal to see IU as the national championship in college football, which feels like the sport with the toughest barriers to get through. And even with NIL and the transfer portal, it still seemed far-fetched that a team, especially the losingest team in NCAA history, would be able to win a national championship and go 16-0 and have the second best margin of victory of any team besides 2013 Florida State, I believe. So it's remarkable. I know a lot of U of L fans are probably a bit sour about it because it could be us. But I think that just tells us that we should not have the expectations to win the championship every year, or really in general, but for us to know that we can accomplish that. And IU, they were the epitome of a team. They didn't make any mistakes. They never beat themselves. And Miami, while they're more talented, while they may be the better team than Indiana, because they were still there at the end, but they made game-breaking mistakes, and that's what people talked about going into it, is if Miami can play a clean game, they'll win it. If not, they'll lose. You have a blocked punt for a touchdown, a game-sealing interception, multiple back-breaking penalties.
Yeah.
It's just
bad throws on 3rd and long.
Yeah, that's what'll lose you games, and that's what happened. So Miami was in it, but You can't expect to make those types of mistakes and win a national championship.
You can't. You got the players in your skill positions got the performances that you needed. I think even, ultimately in the second half you got what you needed from Carson Beck, but the ultimate aspect of where they just made mistakes early on that costed them not getting points, right? Giving up too much time of possession to Indiana as well. That was kind of Indiana playing the MO of trying to be like Miami in that sense, right? We're going to run the ball regardless of certain situations. We're going to try to keep the clock ticking if we can stay ahead of the chains no matter what. Indiana did a great job of that. And when you don't score in the first half of a football game against a good football team that rarely makes mistakes, and they even made more mistakes in a half that second half than they typically do, you can't. It was still too hard of a hill to climb for them, and ultimately IU gets the job done. Matt, I want to look into the Game Day Men's Health text line, but I want to ask do we have the YouTube stream up and running?
We do.
Okay.
Doesn't look fantastic, but it's going.
All right. Sounds good. We should be on WBNA as well. We will be getting these things worked out here in the next couple of days. Hopefully get a new piece of equipment in to allow the stream to operate a little bit smoother for us, but we will be still able to be on YouTube, which should lead to us being on WBNA, where we love our YouTube listeners as well. Get in on the YouTube chat if you want to get your thoughts in. Matt will be keeping track of that, reading that in the producer room where he has easier access to that. We'll be also getting in on the Game Day Men's Health text line early and actively without waiting till 3:30 like Mike typically does. As soon as you guys send the text in, if they're about the topics we're chatting about, we'll get to them as soon as we possibly can. Texter says, open the envelope while Mike is gone. Mike keeps that envelope on him. I did kind of just gander around. I didn't look for it, but I made sure it wasn't around here somewhere. And he definitely is keeping that thing on him. But I wouldn't want to open it anyway because I'm ready for the surprise. We're not supposed to know yet. I'm going to wait to know, and hopefully it's the right man for the job, or woman, I guess. But I want to continue chatting on here, fellas. I want to kind of get a touch on the point you just made, Will, because you said that it shows that we can do it now, right? Basically, as Louisville fans. There's a lot of different fan bases kind of making tweets and making comments showing that if IU can be there, we can be there, or even showing that the kind of some of the schools that were in the situation, Oregon, Ole Miss, right? People that think that they're in that same realm. There's other schools now that think it's possible, but IU doing it really, really shows that there can be a school that was nowhere near this realm, and with the right person in the right position as head coach and the right resources coming in, an immediate flip can be had and change of everything can be had. I also think that they showed an even deeper thing. Matt, I want you to get on this too if you disagree or agree, where there's a certain level of football being played with a certain level of guys that's showing that it can be done as well. It's not they've got Big Ten money. They make a little bit of money, and Kurt Signetti's not your average coach. He's got a lot of knowledge on how to win. He knows how to get guys to buy into the culture that he's trying to instill, and he also kind of just gets guys to play as hard as possible for some reason. With that being said, he's done this with a whole bunch of these rejects and this and that, and that's kind of been the topic of this team. This is a team full of Notre Dame rejects and Penn State rejects and guys from the not in the Power 4 conferences coming up and moving up and making that jump, right? I also think that what's not getting talked about is they played clean football more than anybody all year long. They had such an emphasis on special. They had 3 blocked punts. They had plenty of interceptions. They had plenty of forced fumbles. They didn't do those things themselves, and they also didn't turn the ball or have the dumb penalties, which they had a couple of them last night. Signetti very unhappy about him, and they put that camera on him immediately because it's an uncommon thing for Indiana. It's not something they experienced very often. When you play clean, complementary football, you can have guys that aren't 5 stars at every single position and get there. They just proved it, and they won against a team that does pretty much have that. Does that kind of change? Should that change dramatically how we feel about Louisville football and Jeff Brom? Because he's getting guys technically from top to bottom more than not a couple of guys at that in Miami-esque talent, right? A Reuben Bain, Isaac Brown. You got an NFL talent in Tyler Shuck, which you were able to kind of unlock that, right? He's gotten guys that are not really necessarily known for being those kind of heavy hitters, but also he's gotten some of those big names as well. Knowing that he's gotten those kind of guys and knowing that he's got the coaching ability that he has, showing he's proven beating the big teams he's beaten already here in Louisville, do we raise the expectation even more going into this season in particular with Jeff Brom, just because of what Indiana did? Sorry that was a long-winded way of putting that, but there was a couple different points I wanted to address.
Sure. No, I get it. I think that expectations should be raised because the talent level has been raised, and we've won at least 9 games 3 straight years, which is the best in program history, so you expect your trajectory to at least be that or better, especially because now you feel like you have a roster that's better than last season. You hope that you have a quarterback that's going to elevate above Miller Moss and Jack Plummer and be more on the level of a Tyler Shuck and have a more consistent defense. But there's a lot of questions. And one thing that has prevented us from reaching that next step, which I think has been within our grasp almost every single season that Jeff has been here, and that's just the mind-numbingly stupid mistakes and lack of preparation that our team has. And that is a coaching staff issue. Yep. So somebody like Curt Cignetti, who may have not had the most talent last year or this season, was able to make up for that by being a Bill Belichickian-like CEO of his roster and his staff, to where no mistakes are tolerated whatsoever. You have the most buttoned up.
Everybody knows what it is.
Yeah, there are set expectations, and you best meet those or exceed those expectations. And with Jeff, it just doesn't feel like that iron grip is on the team. Doesn't mean you have to be a jerk or the bad cop, but it just means that you have to run a clean program. And I think that we have failed to do that pretty much every single season that he's been here, whether it's on the field or off the field. And Jeff, he is the type of guy where he tries to hold his players accountable, but he's not a perfect coach. Nobody's a perfect coach. Curt Cignetti is not a perfect coach. But the guys that are successful with less talent are made up of the DNA that Curt Cignetti has, and I don't think Jeff has proven that he has that makeup yet. That doesn't mean that we can't make the playoff or we can't be more successful than we typically have in our history, but it means that things need to be changed and we need to be more consistent with our approach. No matter who we're playing, no matter what day it is, it's guys always practicing if they're available. It's prepping for your opponent, playing up to that level of competition, and that's doing your job and not making back-breaking mistakes and not accepting those mistakes when they occur. So,
great point.
We have a lot of things to work on, and that doesn't mean that our goals aren't attainable or that we shouldn't expect to be better than we are, but it just means that we might have a tougher time than others that are relatively on the same level as us.
Great point there. Two of them there. Joining us now on the Call Your Law Firm hotline, Rashawn Myers, host of the Wake Up 502 radio show right here on the Big X from 9 to 11 every Saturday morning, where you can catch us chatting about all things athletics, pro and college, but in the Louisville scene here is particular. Rashawn, thank you so much for joining the show today, sir. How are you?
Mom, how you doing, man? It's a beautiful Tuesday, brother. It's a little cold, but we all right. We good.
I'm doing great. I'm doing all right for the most part. Let me check here and see if Matt needs me to. Okay, no, we're all good. I'm doing great. Excited to have you on. We're hosting the show today. It's the Roman Kelly and the Matt Childers Show with, of course, Will Wigington joining us here as well. We're chatting right now. We're going to ask Matt here first. We're chatting, though, currently I've asked Will. He gave his take on what if what IU just did should raise or change the expectation for Jeff Brom, but not in particular, just in overall going into this season, though. Should we kind of be feeling like the expectation should be higher now that Indiana's been capable of doing it, based on just what we saw? Matt, what do you think?
I think we definitely raised the expectations at least just a little bit, if anything. I mean, you've seen what was possible now with the NIL era and the transfer portal era, and we've also seen that just in this offseason, Jeff Brom himself is getting more resources from the boosters, from donors and from the athletic administration themselves. So with more money coming in, you have to hold them to a higher standard. You have to raise your expectation levels for what this team can be. We saw this year that you had a really good chance after beating Miami to just kind of walk into the playoff if you just didn't shoot yourself in the foot, the back, and the head, and both arms, which we did multiple times. It's one of those situations where Louisville and the donors themselves have fessed up and said, look, here's your resources. We've given you what you asked. It's up to you now to, like Will said, fix these boneheaded mistakes, fix the disciplinary issues on this team where you just kind of shoot yourself in the foot game in and game out in high-pressure situations. You just kind of have to claw your way out of, dig yourself into these holes and try and jump yourself out. It's on him. it's on the coaching staff to fix that stuff. There's games this season that we were down big in, that we had to come back in, that we shouldn't have. We should have handled our business. You could say some of that was quarterback play, some of it was coaching, some of it was this, some of it was that. But at the end of the day, I'm with Will on this, that the main difference between guys like Coach Cignetti and Jeff Brom, two guys who are known to do more with less, Cignetti has these dudes locked in every game. These dudes are not making those stupid mistakes. They're not getting the personal foul calls. They're not getting the stupid false starts in high-pressure situations. They are locked in. They're prepared. They're ready to play game in and game out. And if we're going to give this much money to Jeff Brom and bring in these stacked rosters season in and season out, he needs to put up as well. He needs to get these guys ready. They need to be prepared. We can't just every single season win one really big game and that be our national championship. We got to win the games we're meant to win as well and hold that team ourselves to a higher standard.
I agree completely. I'm with you guys both. I think that when you even look at the way that his roster is constructed, you get probably more continuity going into this season than I think that Indiana roster had in its turnover from last season. That means something in college football when it's your best players that you're getting back, right? Not most teams don't get to do that. That's kind of another factor going into this that I kind of raised the expectation as well. Rashad, I want to ask you, kind of chat with us just what your overall thoughts on that performance last night from Indiana, beating Miami in the way that they did, kind of shutting them out in that first half, giving themselves the platform to have that cushion in the second half, and that being enough to get the victory. What did you think of the game, and does this raise the expectation for Jeff Brom in Louisville going into this season?
It was a great game last night. It was very fun. It was very entertaining. I had a feeling that it was going to be a very hotly contested game. There were a lot of people talking about Indiana was going to blow out Miami. I did not see that at all. I just thought that was, at some point during the championship run, you're going to get tested. And considering that both of these teams had played so well up to this final game, I figured it would be pretty good, and it lived up to the hype. I hate that it ended on an interception. I would have loved to see it get down to like a last play, throw into the end zone, win it or lose it. That would have been awesome. It was unfortunate the way it kind of shook out, but no, Indiana and Coach Cignetti, what they were able to do this year is not short of amazing, but I do think that it raises the expectations in terms of you understand that it's possible now. I don't think that it's a situation where you should say, okay, you should be able to do it because, you're going to have, 50 or 60 programs that all are going to say you should be able to do it now. Only one team can win a championship. So I think that the biggest thing that Indiana does lets you know is that the Big Boy Network to a large extent is dead in terms of just them being able to control everything. Now you have a true inclusivity, you have a true opportunity to do something special if you get the coach right, if you get the players right, you have that proper mix, then it can be possible. So I think the biggest thing for Jeff Brom, I think that Louisville's been knocking on the door probably closer than almost any other program that hasn't made it to a playoff as of yet. And I think for Louisville, it's more about two things. First of all, got to be more disciplined. The biggest issue with Louisville has been the fact that they have not been a disciplined football team over the 3 years that Jeff Brom's been here, and I think that lack of discipline has shown up and cost them big time in a lot of opportunities. And the second thing was, Coach Brom taking some flyers at the quarterback position has burned Louisville 2 out of 3 years. And, this year with Lincoln Kienholz, this is a lot more of the same. It's taking a flyer on a guy that you have no idea if he can play, but that was the decision that Coach Brom went with. So, we're going to have to let the chips fall where they may, but I think that, it is a gamble, but I do think that there is opportunity for good things to happen.
I think so as well. It'll be interesting to see what we're able to do going forward into what could be a very, very exciting season with the way that the schedule shapes up to the very start, having Ole Miss. We'll see very quickly just how good this Louisville team can be. I do think that game will not necessarily shape our season or anything like that, but it will be exciting to see us actually get tested from day one in our season, which we haven't really gotten to see under Jeff Brom all that much, or at all, I believe, actually. So that'll be good. It'll be nice. I ultimately believe in this roster. I don't know if I believe in Kienholz yet. There's not really a way to when he hasn't been in this kind of a spot yet. But ultimately, they saw something. They saw something that they needed to see to give him the reins. And I hate to say it, fellas, because we've said it a lot, and it hasn't really been the something that is been a consistent thing. We have to trust Jeff Brom, right? That trust may be wavering a little bit if he continues to take these waivers and these flyers like we just mentioned, and it doesn't pan out. If this one pans out, though, it could be a great season because it's starting to look like we have a roster that could be a special one. At least, on the defensive side, that defensive front, the offensive line kind of being one that looks like it could match that. That gives you the foundation for what could be a great football team. So we know we're going to be a good football team. Can he do the little things he needs to make this a great football team? That's kind of been the question for like 3 seasons now, even through the Tyler Shuck season where we had the success at the quarterback spot. There were still issues with the little things in the way the team played, the penalties, the moments in which we weren't keeping our level-headedness and doing the things we need to do as a unit. Jeff Brom has to be able to fix all of those. The culture things. I mean, Miller Boss mentioned it. We all said it's not the person we want to hear saying it, but we all think it. We all want it to be addressed. It's time to address those little things as well. But ultimately, I think we have to say that I keep saying but ultimately. We'll have to work that one out of the talk here. I do think that this has to be something that raises the expectation for Jeff Brom at least a little bit. You get great roster continuity. You're able to bring in talented players, and you have this expectation on yourself as a coach that gets the best out of the talent that he has, even if it's going up against rosters that may have more talent than you, i.e. the Indiana or the Miami game that we just played this season. You beat Notre Dame, different situations in which you've showcased that. It's time to all piece that together and limit all of the things that make you not a great football team. And it starts now. It starts now, I think, and it feels good to kind of see another school do something that we didn't think was possible. We kind of have been unsure if it's possible for us, and I think we now know that it is. Let's go see it, Jeff. Let's go see it. Fellas, we do kind of get here to the outro of the show. Was there anything like from last night that surprised you guys? Is there anything we didn't get into? I know there were some interesting things on the broadcast from last night. I don't know if we really need to get into those things, but I thought like how many different players for Miami down there on the field. I thought that was kind of cool. Getting to see Ray Lewis, getting to see Ed Reed down there. Obviously, Michael Irvin does his thing down there. Not as many players on the Indiana side, which you'd kind of expect. But it was cool to kind of see all of the different famous people at the game. Lil Uzi Vert was at the game. The president was at the game. It was fat at the game, fellas. There was a lot of people there. And I was kind of surprised to see the Indiana crowd. What would we call that? I mean, was it 60-40? Indiana?
It was
at least.
Yeah, it was. They outnumbered them, but slightly. It wasn't a major.
That really shocked me. I thought it would be at minimum 50-50. I thought Miami should be able to get a 60-40 crowd in there, and it was definitely not that. That was definitely not the case. And that might have been a factor there late in that game for some of those moments for that Indiana or Miami side where that Indiana crowd was loud. But great national championship performance. Fellas, football almost done. Now we kind of shift to the end of the NFL season here, and we're going to be chatting about that as well here with Rashawn. Rashawn, your Ravens in an interesting spot. I don't know how long they're going to be your Ravens. We can't even call them your Ravens right now with some of the things we're seeing on social media. I don't know how true they all are, but I mean, there's supposed to be some changes with Lamar Jackson next season, and there's kind of a interesting Super Bowl landscape. Not necessarily a lot of expected picks for the Super Bowl. Now you're forced to, right? Seahawks in this kind of a spot, Patriots in this spot, teams that we didn't necessarily think would be like top of where they're at, and they are. They're there, and it'll be fun to kind of see how that all unfolds. Matt, Will, anything else to add from last night that we didn't get into? Or Rashawn, anything else you want to add into last night's performance?
Well, no, I mean, the biggest thing for me, I just love the spectacle of it. I thought that it was very entertaining. I think that they put on a great product. The Indiana folks did show up. I loved all the stars there. I just thought it was just a great production of football. My biggest takeaway is I would like to see the season for college football start a couple weeks earlier so that we could get out of some of these transfer portal issues and things of that nature, like what happened with Ole Miss. That's probably the biggest thing for me is have this championship game end around the first of the year so we can start the new year fresh. That would probably be the biggest takeaway. But other than that, it was a great show, it was a great production, and a great playoff overall.
Yeah, I think they should just continue to put the transfer portal later in the thing, and if they can move all of the national championship, all of the playoff games up a little bit, I think it would be better. I don't even see the really need to wait for the national championship game either. I guess you got to give them a little bit more rest. Does it need to be that much rest, though? I don't know. But that's a great point there. We're going to take a break. We'll be right back after this. We'll see you guys right on the other side right here. 96.1 FM, 1450 AM. The Mike Rutherford Show presented by United Mechanical and Nexus Plus. Stay tuned. Mechanical and Nexus Plus. Roman Kelly, Will Wigington, Matt Childers, joined by Rashawn Myers on the Collier Law Firm hotline right now as well. Coming to you live here as we continue our chat on. We're going to continue this. Well, we're not going to continue, actually. We're going to shift the narrative here a little bit. We're going to take a look at the Game Day Men's Health text line. I don't have it pulled up right now, but Matt, you want to continue on with the Game Day Men's Health text line, see what the next text is for us?
Yeah, why not? The next one I see is a texter says, wait, Virginia. I imagine that was from we were talking about answering the text earlier. About, yeah, Virginia should have been an easy one. On the spot. I'm not good on the spot. I'll be honest. That's right.
I don't know why I didn't think
that's
of Virginia.
My fault right there. Another text is from the Riddler here. It says, Josh, do the right thing. Announce the lawsuit and the Brom extension and a Nike deal and get us Papa John's and get us in the SEC Big Ten. Basically, do your job. Indiana just passed you and lapped you last night when 3 years ago we were ahead. Inexcusable.
What do you think of that, Will? What do you think of that, Rashawn? Actually, we'll ask Rashawn first. Has Indiana lapped us, Rashawn?
won a national. I mean, any team that's not won a national championship.
Exactly.
I mean, just by the letter of the law of the fact that they won a national championship, they would be better than any team that hasn't won. I mean, wouldn't you think?
I think so. I mean, they what are they 27? Was it the game in their last 2 years? It's 27.
No, they're 27-2.
In their last two seasons, they're lapping everybody right now.
Yeah.
Capping that off with a national championship in a season in which they didn't lose. Now, I mean, as an athletic department, they're not necessarily lapping a lot of people. I mean, football is a powerhouse. Basketball is not bad, but they're not contender level. Now, if they were contender level, they'd be truly lapping everybody. If they can get basketball
and
to
this
that
other
level.
thing, Roman, that you got to think about is that in the world and the era of NIL and transfer portal, no team to me is going to stay on top. You may have a window of 1 or 2 years, but it'll be interesting to see what Indiana and everybody else. I mean, to me, this literally is going to be kind of you're going to have your usual suspects that just spend so much money that they're going to at least be decent. But I think who's best and, who's up near the top is going to be cyclical. It's going to be either every year or every 2 years. You're going to see a new group of teams that kind of float to the top. So I think this is kind of the new normal of college athletics, especially when it comes to football and basketball.
I don't think there's any room for dynasties is basically what I feel like you're also kind of getting at, Rashawn. There's not going to be one school winning 2 or 3 national championships in a 5-year span. I mean, there may be, but I think there's going to be multiple different teams all capable of doing so every year rather than 2 or 3 teams capable of doing so, or really 1 or 2 teams truly capable. The parity in college football has expanded massively, so it could be Indiana next year, but it could also be
Texas Tech.
Texas Tech. It could be Texas. It could be anybody, right? And there's just no way to know for sure because everybody kind of has that same platform now. If you have a certain level of money and you know how to go handpick the right players, anybody can really go and do it. That's kind of the whole point we're all been making. What else we got on the Game Day Mintel text line here? Matt, before we get into the first topic, we'll start for this segment.
Next texter says, championship will always have an asterisk because the Hoosiers were too scared to play Miller Moss.
That's a great point. They didn't want that smoke. They ducked it.
Could you imagine in a world where if they didn't back out of that game, we would have played Indiana and Miami and won both of those games, and then they played the national championship? How upset would you be?
That would be ugly. What about you, Will?
I don't even know what to think about that, honestly. Mainly because we would be playing at Indiana, and I just would have given us absolutely no shot in that game.
I would have been spamming this is just the third place national championship game tweets all night.
Oh, yeah, transitive property, we would have won the national championship 100%. But, yeah, that would have been really disappointing. It sucked to even see Miami there, but, I mean, they earned their way and we didn't, so.
Yeah, you're right. I do see a text in here now, some texts. One says, Will's name reminds me of a slightly chubby bench player for an MLB team who can only pinch hits. Who only pinch hits. No offense to Will. Inspiration, and sends a screenshot here, and it's a player named Ty Wigginton.
Hey.
You ever heard of Ty Wigginton, Will?
No, the only athlete that has the same last name as me, I don't know if you remember, he played for Iowa State in basketball. His name was Lindell Wigginton. We were actually recruiting him, and he was a high-level prospect that turned out to be a bust, but haven't heard of anybody else that played professional sports at least.
Yeah. Texter says here, the Brom squad is loaded whenever all these way too early rankings are putting their SEC Big Ten propaganda aside to rank us in the 14 and 19 range.
I mean, there's still, I think On3 put out a top 25. There's still 9 SEC teams ranked in their top 25, which is egregious. So, but I have seen us get a lot of respect, honestly, not even just top 25, top 20. Mm-hmm. So
we've done a great job in the portal. We're doing a pretty good job with the high school traditional recruiting as well. The combination of those two with what you've also retained on your roster and how those guys are rated puts you up there. We need to continue to rise. Okay, this is a great one here. I wanted to get into this a little bit today. Texter says, Rashawn, I want to ask you this first, and then Will, and then Matt. Would you kick Jeff Brom to the curb if you knew that you had a guarantee to land Kurt Cignetti? Rashawn? Would you replace Kurt Cignetti with Jeff Brom right now? Would you replace Jeff Brom with Kurt Cignetti right now?
Short answer, no. While I appreciate what Coach Cignetti has done for over these 2 years, I still, I'm not fully buying into Kurt Cignetti as the new Saban or anything like that yet. Yeah, I mean, by and large, even though he's had 2 different quarterbacks over his 2 years and done really well, he still had, the brunt of his JMU guys and all those guys that came with him and that he identified in the portal. All those guys worked out, but I would need to see it over a longer period before I'm going to give up on Jeff Brom, who has had Louisville in the conversation. We talked about the shortcomings, but I think that we already have an excellent head coach, so I'm not ready to throw the baby out with the bathwater just yet.
Will?
I mean, Jeff's been loyal to us. I think we need to be loyal to him, and plus it would be more rewarding if we won at a high level with Jeff rather than anybody else. So I would say no.
Matt?
I'm on the same wavelength. It's one where, you have, in terms, the prodigal son here coaching your program that he wants to be at. And after all the coaching carousel talks where Penn State's coming in, Ole Miss might be jumping in, all this. Jeff Brom basically shut all that down, saying, guys, I don't even really need that big of an extension. I just want more NIL. I just want to be able to compete at the highest level. I want to do it here at Louisville. I want to show you guys I can do it. I want to show my family I can do it. I don't even want to leave my house. And I think that, like Will said, if Jeff Brom is willing to put that aside for us, we should be able to put aside things like that for him.
Give me Kurt Cignetti. I'm just kidding. I'm just kidding. Fellas, I'm right there with you guys. Jeff Brom, like you said, is the prodigal son. He belongs here. He knows what Louisville football is more than anybody else. And it would be so rewarding to see somebody who wants Louisville football to be in that spot more than the average person does in the coaching room, to be the person that's doing it for us and getting us there and getting us over that hump and knowing what it would have taken that entire time versus somebody that's just coming in, instilling their system. We don't really know much about it. They're bringing their players. They're bringing this. And it's not really a lot of connections to it. And it wouldn't – I say it wouldn't hit as hard. It would still be the most amazing thing ever, right? Watching Louisville be in the situation where they're hoisting the trophy up, that would be absolutely unreal. It's kind of hard to even picture. To kick him to the curb, though, I don't know. I don't know. I don't think I could kick Brom to the curb for a guarantee of Kurt Cignetti. Now, that's another thing. Is like if Brom goes on if you ask me in a year and a half or 2 years from now and Brom's gone on to kind of have another season like this or be on path for a second or third season in a row like this again, and Cignetti's put his team in the national championship or the quarterfinal or semifinal again, or 2 or 3 years in a row, Cignetti has Indiana as semifinalist at the least, now you're asking a different question, right? Because he's proven with different rosters at that point he can do it. Jeff Brom's proving with different rosters that we think have improved time after time that he's not getting over that hump. So at that point, it just wouldn't be logical. But I think it's a little bit too early still, kind of with both of you guys, all three of you guys on that aspect. So great question there from the Game Day Men's Health text line. Another text coming in now from Scoots Hater. You want to read this one, Matt?
Yeah, I got you. It says, Roman, tell Scoots to suck it for me. He was wrong as hell. My bet from last night hit in all caps.
Love that you got a hit here, Scoots Hater. He had Mark Fletcher anytime touchdown, Malachi Toney 6+ receptions, and Carson Beck 200+ yards. I actually like the Carson Beck and the Fletcher. I don't even think I gave a full-on take. I think I said I like all of them, but I think we said that Malachi Toney 6+ receptions could be a little bit risky, and it was not risky, having 10 receptions last night in that matchup. Great hit, Scoots Hater. Another texter in here says it's the Riddler again. Indiana football is here to stay, I fear, fellas. They've committed the football, they've committed the money, and have, as far as anyone can tell, an elite coach. I don't think they're a flash in the pan. Josh Hurd got stuffed in a locker.
What does Josh Hurd have to do with the Indiana hiring Kurt Cignetti?
Texter says, LOL, there's no proof those teams even wanted Brom. Don't think we would have been in the situation we were in if there wasn't any consideration. I think there was definitely some consideration from a few of those.
Penn State definitely went after him.
I think they
They were in negotiations, I'm pretty sure.
Yeah, so definitely real consideration for sure. I want to change the topic here while we've still got Rashawn on the Collier Law Firm hotline. Don't know how long we'll be able to keep him on for, but Rashawn, Louisville basketball had something interesting happen yesterday. We got a tweet from Michael Brown Jr., and we also got a quote from Pat Kelsey about the Michael Brown situation. Basically, both Michael Brown stating that received some good news, and that he will be back in practice this week looking to play ASAP. Pat Kelsey says that it's basically the same thing. They have Michael back in practice, and they will be looking to see how things go from there. Not really offering the same kind of necessarily enthusiasm on him being on the floor, but glad to have him back. Definitely glad to have him in practice. We know Pat Kelsey is. What do we think of Michael Brown stating this at the beginning of the week like he did? Do we think that we should be expecting Michael Brown Jr. back probably maybe this week, this Saturday, or maybe next week, Rashawn?
Yeah, I mean, Roman, I was lucky enough to get some inside information about what's been going on with Michael, and I shared some of that with you, and it's great that they feel confident enough with this to come out publicly and kind of not necessarily announce that he's back, but announce that he's moving in the right direction. And I don't think they would have come out and made an additional statement like that unless things were looking really, really good, especially after all the PR issues over the last several weeks. I don't think they want to get themselves into another situation where they're announcing somebody's going to be there just to turn around and have them miss another 3 or 4 weeks. So I feel like everything is going in the right direction. I feel, it seems like everybody around Michael and his camp seem to be very positive about the way things going. I know a lot of people asked if this was a real thing, if this was a legit injury, is he just holding out or sitting out? It absolutely was a real injury. They absolutely saw specialists. They absolutely wanted to take their time to make sure he was back 100% healthy. And especially when you're dealing with back issues, you want to make sure that he is all the way back before you put him out there, because you don't want him to have to miss additional time. So I feel like everybody's handled this the right way. I think people get frustrated because you lose to a Duke, you lose to a Stanford, you lose to a Virginia. So, of course, everybody's going to be pointing fingers and doing all that. But I do think that we're going to see Michael sooner rather than later, and that could be as early as Saturday.
From the Saturday performance against Pitt, did you have anything that changed for you about kind of where Louisville basketball is at the moment in that performance, from that performance at all, Rashawn?
I mean, for me, they came out, and of course, when Louisville's hitting shots, they're always going to look better, and they did an excellent job of, I think the biggest change from that game, from the Virginia game, is against Virginia, Louisville was very hesitant. Their offense was very the ball was not moving. The ball was not moving. Guys weren't cutting. Everything looked very unsure against Virginia on last Tuesday, and I think that was the biggest thing that changed from Virginia to Pittsburgh, is that offensively, guys were moving, guys were cutting, the ball was not getting stuck. People were definitive with what they were doing out there, and I think that really helped to create better looks, better offense overall. But it didn't necessarily change anything. I feel like this Louisville team has things that they need to work out in terms of consistently generating good shots without Michael Brown Jr. I think they did take some steps towards that. But then, of course, the other big elephant in the room is how they handle playing against bigger lineups. And if you saw the second half of the game on Saturday, Coach Kelsey took a lot of time playing with bigger lineups where you're moving Hadley to the three and trying to play, Khalifa and Frew together, Frew and Zoo together, Zoo and Khalifa together. He did a lot of mixing and matching more of your two bigs and a Hadley at the three spot. And I think you'll see more of that with maybe Kenai Roos once he returns, which he should be back Saturday as well. Well, more lineups with Kenai at the three or Kenai at the four with the big guys, a lot more. So I think that Coach Kelsey is at least trying to do some things to move in the right direction, but I'm going to just say he did the same thing against Montana after Louisville lost to Tennessee. He kind of went with some big lineups to kind of try to test it out, and then he immediately went away from it.
Yeah.
So my hope is this time around he's going to actually stick with his guns and not try to just fall back into what he's comfortable with these smaller lineups with Hadley playing the brunt of the minutes at the four, because I do think ultimately they're going to have to start to learn to be efficient in these bigger lineups if they want to get where they want to be as a team overall.
I'm right there with you. Will, what did you think of the performance on Saturday? Did it change anything for you, and how did you feel about the double bigs?
It did not change a single thing in my mind, and the reason why is because that's what we do to bad teams. We just blast them, and our style of play it caters to destroying bum teams that have poor discipline defensively.
Yeah.
So we did exactly what I expected us to do. Maybe not by the margin of victory, but I expected us to handle business. Pitt is a horrible team. Jeff Capel should be fired. He should have already been fired.
Yeah.
They're a lifeless team. Their roster does not have much fire, and we came in and we needed a win, and we took care of business. Now, the only thing is we can take care of business against bad or mid-level teams, but I'm not going to change my opinion on anything of this season so far until we do it against legit competition. So Virginia Tech is a tough team. This weekend, they have, I think, 3 ACC losses, and all of those are on game-winning jumpers by the other team. So they've had brutal losses, and I think they're a tournament-level team. They have a pretty sizable roster, something that can bother us, especially a good scorer like Neo Abdallas. And we might have some issues with them, especially if Michael isn't back. I would think, in my mind, he's probably targeting the Duke game. I don't think he's going to play this weekend. So it'll be interesting to see that. After the Virginia Tech and Duke games, we'll know a lot more about what this team is going to look like moving forward. But, yeah, ultimately the Pitt game didn't change a single thing.
We saw what we needed to see. They met the expectation in that game, and then they exceeded it by continuing to play with that level of effort and intensity throughout. But Will, I want to also ask, how have you been processing this Michael Brown situation? How important do you think it is that we get him back ASAP? Because as we discussed yesterday on the Mondays with Dalton Penn show, it's kind of an interesting situation as the fact that he's been out so long dealing with that kind of an injury. Do you want him back maybe playing at a limited minute role this Saturday so he's seen the floor before the Duke game? Do you think if the Duke game's his first game out there that maybe that gives us an advantage? Do you not want to see him against that kind of opponent for his first time out there? How do you what would be the ideal kind of return? Is it just ASAP?
When he's ready to go, and don't say, we need to shake the rust off. I mean, I don't really think that's going to be a problem with him. We don't rely on him.
How I felt.
Yeah, it's his game is more instinctual than anything. It's not like he needs to ramp himself up and be prepared. Like, he's a young, great athlete. He's just ready to play ball.
Yeah.
So I don't think we need to play him a limited amount of minutes against Virginia Tech and then put him in against Duke in his regular role. Just throw him out there like you normally do. And it's imperative that we have him. I mean, everybody's numbers have gone down since he was out of the lineup.
Percentages, yep.
Our team has been, bad. We have are we 500 or below 500 without Michael, but around that at least. And that's with several bye games in that mix. So we need to have him back as soon as possible, but with him being healthy at the very least. And yeah, don't rush it, but don't put a limited amount of minutes on him. Just let him be him, and let's go win some games against good teams.
Yeah, I'm ready to do so. It feels good to know that he's definitely back at practice now, and that being a confirmed thing. I think Monday, Tuesday, Wednesday, whatever the practice schedule is for a week, should be able to get him ready to go, at least to see the floor on Saturday, and then ultimately be ready to go against Duke that following Monday. That is a quick turnaround, playing Duke, not a Tuesday matchup. It's that big Monday matchup on 7 p.m. in Cameron Indoor Stadium. But Rashawn, ultimately, are you worried about Michael Brown having any rust, him not being his full self when he does get out there?
I don't necessarily think it'll be rust. I just think that I would worry about him. I would much rather see him Saturday if he's ready to go, much more than his first game being back against Duke, because I think when he comes back, especially if you're playing a high profile, you're going to be Cameron Indoor, you're going to have the Cameron Crazies in there. It just feels like an opportunity where Michael comes back as your point guard. He's going to have to get back into the flow, and he's going to have to kind of get back into learning to play with his team. I think that individually he can do a lot of nice things, but you would like, if he can get his feet wet, to have at least a few minutes against Virginia Tech to kind of get him ready, because, that game against Duke is going to be huge. And I think it's not necessarily just about Michael. Like when I talked about, playing with those bigger lineups, they're going to need to play bigger, even with Michael, if they're going to want to beat Duke. I believe that to be the case. I think that if you start Michael at the point and you still have Hadley playing 35 minutes with 32 of those minutes being at the 4 spot, it's not going to make a difference. Duke's going to win that game. But I do think that having him back, regardless of whether it's, first game versus Duke, first game versus Virginia Tech, having his talent out there, having his ability out there is a net positive regardless. So as soon as you can get him out there and he's 100% healthy, I think you just take it.
Yep, I'm ready to see him back out there. It's time. It's time we get Michael Brown, we get our point guard back on the floor. I mean, I say that. It was time that he is hopefully 100%, because once it is, we should see that uptick in everything again. I do think it will be something that does ultimately help us defensively because of how it changes the shot attempts we get, how it changes the kind of looks that we play through, and then the pace of play as well. And that kind of speeds other teams up and forces them into shots they're maybe not used to taking when you're going up against those bigger, slower teams. So we need your point guard for those kinds of moments. There's so many aspects of the game that a guy like him can take advantage of with his speed and his ball handling ability, and on top of that, his kind of seemingly what seems to be ambidextrous passing ability as well. We need it back. He gets guys open by himself, and it's been prevalent that we've lacked that kind of true offensive ball movement consistently throughout a game when we don't have him on the floor. And I'm ready to get back out there. Will, I believe we are under 500. We beat Montana, we beat Cal. We went 2-0 without him in the first 2 games. You lose to Stanford, lose to Duke.
Oh, we lost to Tennessee without him.
Oh, that's what I mean. I'm sorry about that. Yeah, you go Tennessee 0-1, 2-1, 2-2. That's crazy. So it's we need him. We need him. There's no ifs, ands, or buts about it. We knew that, but we definitely know it now for sure, and it's time to see him out there. Fellas, I kind of want to take a little bit of a shift here into the next thing that we were going to get into, because I had to ask Rashawn while we still have him on. Cavaliers, Donovan Mitchell finally gets the guys a little bit back healthy out there, and then no one can stay on the floor consistently yet again. They go and they kind of get throttled on their home floor last night against the Thunder. Rashawn, talk to me about what's been up with the Cavs lately.
Man, Cleveland Cavaliers are an unserious franchise right now. I can't deal with it this year, Rome. I have been a ardent supporter of Don and Cleveland, but they need to make, they keep doing the same thing for the last 3 seasons and expecting different results. Like, the mix of what they're trying to do right now is not going to work. And, I've been a big proponent of saying, Jared Allen, Darius Garland, gotta go. You gotta move those guys. You need to bring in some guys that fit and are more complementary. You need to be able to move Donovan full time to the point guard, and then bring in another higher scoring wing and another nice defensive wing as well. To me, that's the difference. And until they do that, we're going to continue to see the same thing. Cleveland is good enough to beat the bad teams, but when they play the best teams out there, to me, they're just not consistently good enough. And I think it's because those guys that they have just aren't ready for prime time. So yeah, I am hoping beyond hope that Cleveland does something before the February 4th is the trade deadline. They need to do something before the trade deadline. I know that Darius Garland's dealing with some injury stuff right now as well, which is, happens 3 times every year as well. So I'm very frustrated with the Cavaliers, right? That's a long way of saying I'm very annoyed with Cleveland right now, Ron.
Yep. I mean, Donovan Mitchell averaging a career high in points, career high in rebounds, just about 0.2 away from a career high in assists as well, and they're not getting the production that they need from the other unit guys. I mean, Jalen Tyson being his consistent best player role piece is crazy. Jalen Tyson should not be the second best player consistently on this team night in and night out. It should be Evan Mobley, and it's not. Evan Mobley's good, but he's not consistent. He hasn't added enough to his game with the skill that he has. I think he needs to have gotten a little bit stronger by now. He needs to have gotten a little bit quicker. That twitch, that aspect of explosion needs to have been more of a thing in his game, and he doesn't have that. And Jared Allen is kind of wasting up the space down there for Mobley to kind of rock in when you do send Mobley down low. Get a different piece with Jared Allen and Mobley. Go replace that with some wing, somebody aggressive as a scorer out on the wing, and let Mobley be your kind of hub 5 that can do all of it, can do everything for you, and can be that presence for you defensively as well. You don't need Jared Allen at this point. It's just kind of wasting space, forcing you to need other shooters out there on the floor when you have him on the floor. So Cavaliers are going to need to make a change. This is going to wrap us up here, though, in this second segment of the Mike Rutherford Show. This has been Roman Kelly, Matt Schroeders, Will Wigginton, joined by Rashawn Myers on the Collier Law Firm Hotline. Stay tuned. We'll be right back right after this right here on the Big X. presented by United Mechanical and Nexus Plus here in the Louisville College of Business Studios. It's Roman Kelly, joined today by Matt Childers and Will Wigginton. Just got done chatting with Rashawn Myers on the Collier Law Firm hotline. Got his takes on some Indiana-Miami football from last night and the Hoosiers winning the national championship and kind of what that means for the Cars. Also chatted a little there about the Louisville basketball team and Michael Brown Jr. and what him getting back to practice means and when we're going to see him back out there. We want to continue getting your all's questions, thoughts, and concerns in on the Game Day Men's Health text line at 502-414-1450. Tester does say here, the Riddler, Rashawn, are you a Josh Hurd shill? He's not. He just keeping it real,
The Riddler thought that I was a Josh Hurd shill on Twitter a few weeks ago. I don't know if you saw that.
I did not see that. What'd he say?
No, it was mainly, I can't remember who I was replying to, but it was me saying, I think it might have been Ty Spalding, but I could be wrong. It was basically about that it's unrealistic or unfair to say that Josh Hurd absolutely has to give Jeff Brom an extension when Jeff will beat a top 10 team every year, but then consistently lose to multiple teams that are well below us.
Yeah.
Talent-wise and just record-wise. So, and then he said I was a Josh Hurd shill, and I was like, no, I'm just trying to be realistic. I mean, Jeff does deserve an extension, but he's not perfect.
That'd be the second time that the Riddler's going to have to come back and apologize for coming at somebody on Twitter just in the last 2 days.
No, we're good. We're good. He wasn't coming at me, really. He just said I was a Josh Hurd shill, and I was like, no.
Keeping you on your toes.
Yesterday, he had to say sorry because he was tweeting at Mike Hill.
Yeah, which he knows better about that. Though.
Yeah,
he knows.
We all love the Riddler, though.
We love the Riddler, and he's a social media guy. He's gonna get on there and do his thing. That's what the little fan base needs, and we're glad he does it.
Trigger fingers turn to Twitter fingers.
Always. Texter says, any idea what the roster retention for Indiana football was between last year and this year? Will, I think you looked into this a little bit for us. Do you want to go ahead and kind of chat on that for a second?
Yeah, I mean, these are not all the players, but just some notable names from the roster that are carryovers, whether they transfer from JMU to Indiana and have played the last couple seasons, or they're just homegrown Indiana talents. So guys like Mikhail Kamara, the guy who blocked the punt for a touchdown last night, he's a JMU transfer. He played there last season. Elijah Surratt, obviously, he came down from D2 originally, I think, to JMU, had over 1,000 yards, and then went to Indiana the past couple years. D'Angelo Pons, I think he's also a JMU transfer, but he was there last year. And then Omar Cooper and Charlie Becker, those two guys are both
IU guys,
homegrown talents.
They've been there before Signetti, right?
Yeah, Omar Cooper's been there for 3 years, Charlie Becker for 2. But yeah, those are just some big name guys that made huge plays last night that they were carryovers from last season. So they did have a solid amount of roster retention. I mean, obviously Mendoza's a transfer. I think that both Roman Hemby and Kalon Black are, but I'm not sure. They might not be holdovers from last season. I could be wrong, but I'm pretty sure Roman Hemby, did he come from like Rutgers or something?
Something like that. I think that's actually right.
Let me look it up real quick.
I think the craziest one on this roster is E.J. Williams. That man, I want you guys to know, if you guys didn't know, that man played with Trevor Lawrence.
Really?
That's absurd, actually.
I think that was his freshman season. He was in Trevor Lawrence's last year at Clemson, and then I didn't go and do a deep dive on why he has that much. I imagine it's multiple injuries and redshirt seasons and stuff. But yeah, he was catching touchdown passes from Trevor Lawrence in 2020. So he also got a COVID year, obviously.
Yeah. So Roman Hemby is actually a Maryland transfer. This is his first year with IU.
Red school.
Kalon Black is a holdover. He actually was a freshman at JMU in 2020, and is now concluding his college career. He's been at Indiana the last 2 seasons and played at JMU for 4. So he had a 6-year college career. And then Roman Hemby, he's just 1 year short. He spent 4 years at Maryland, 1 at IU. So, yeah, they're two-headed monster at running back. They're both gone, so we'll see how they replace them.
We'll see how they look. We also know that Mendoza's in the portal, so we'll see what Jake Hoover.
Yeah, Alberto Mendoza, not Fernando.
Yeah. Fernando's head of the NFL. Alberto, they're not twins, right?
No, he's a little bit
younger.
He still has 3 years of eligibility, I believe.
Okay.
So we'll see
they
where
do
he goes.
look very, very
Well,
very
I think it was announced just a little bit ago that he is going to Georgia Tech.
Oh, really?
I think it was while we were doing the. I literally was just scrolling while you guys were talking, and I think I saw it. I'll double check
I'll look
that.
up his name on Twitter real quick.
See what we can find. See, because
Okay. It just says new prediction Georgia Tech. It wasn't official yet. It says Pete Nakos has logged an expert prediction for Georgia Tech to land Indiana transfer Alberto Mendoza.
he's going to Chris. He's probably going.
He gives a 60% chance.
Now, I just got a notification saying Duke is trying to sue Darian Mensah.
Yeah,
This
And
came
not
out right
let him
before
go.
we
Are
started.
you going to try to sue him and keep him and then use him again next season?
well, that's exactly what Washington did to Damon Williams. I think that's. I mean,
That is not smart for
Duke. Oh, it is.
It's what you have to do.
It may be not to keep him, but I would
not
sue
to
him
keep
into
him.
the ground.
Oh, yeah, I would too.
Yeah.
But to and then try to make him play?
Why not? He's got he has an obligation to his contract.
This is what happens when
He
you're
does.
when you're a
This is
college
so-
player who
such-
signs a contract.
You're completely right, Matt.
We need to have collective bargaining and soon in college football, and I'm glad that Washington, they stood their ground, and Damon Williams is coming back, and he apologized for the way in which he entered the portal and the timing of it, because obviously that was terrible with that memorial ceremony that was going on. I wouldn't have kept him back personally, but I understand why Washington did. And same thing with Duke. I mean, they had a good season last year with Manny Diaz. They're bringing a lot of talent back, and they expect to compete for the ACC championship again, especially with Darian Mensah and him just turncoating at the last minute. No, you don't accept that. And if you do, then that's a sign of bad things to come, no matter how many dollars Miami tries to throw at him.
I got to put it this way. So, in terms of Roman, I'll agree with you in terms of Duke. Like, it's not good for them bringing him back because then you have the animosity of I want to leave, but you're forcing me
kid
to
that
stay
didn't
here.
want to be there.
Exactly, you have that. But in the landscape of college football,
You got to stand your ground.
you have to stand your ground. This is groundbreaking, just like Washington. This is groundbreaking for every other school that intends to put these players on contract. You're seeing it now as okay. Well, if Washington and Duke are holding these and taking them to court, which I did see an update that they're looking at a February 2nd court date for this. They have them on a temporary. Oh gosh, what's it called?
Injunction?
They have him on an injunction. I wrote it down. They have him on a. Oh my gosh, I'm trying to find it. Temporary restraining order.
Oh, wow.
So he is not allowed to be contacted by any schools at all while this is going on until it's settled. He is a Duke Blue Devil, and he's going to stay a Blue Devil, and it's probably going to go fully to court, whereas with Devin Williams, his at least was just like, okay, guys, I'll come back. But this is a big thing for college sports because now if you're a player, you want to come to Louisville and play for Jeff Brom, if you're a really highly touted prospect, we're paying you a lot of money year in and year out. Tough. Sorry, you're staying. Like, unless we let you go, you got to stay. This is a job now.
Look, we need to get in with Chris Redman and say, just go grab one of these guys. We'll become the new OTE situation. We'll come play for us. We'll get you to the NFL, right? That's just what we got to go get Mensah on the Kings. Go grab him. That's what we need to do. That's crazy, though, Matt.
The one thing about this that is confusing me, Will, maybe you have, Roman, maybe you do too have some more information on this. I'm not understanding how these contracts work because they're student athletes, so they legally cannot be contracted through the university.
I think they can now, actually. Because of the Supreme Court ruling, now you have rev sharing. So universities are allowed to allocate $20 million a year to athletic funding, and that goes directly in students' pockets. So they are technically considered employees, but a lot of it's still being done through NIL third-party systems.
Okay. Duke University sued quarterback Darian Mensah on Tuesday, and a judge denied a request for a temporary restraining order that would have prevented him from entering the transfer portal. The judge, a Duke basketball season ticket holder, and thus a booster, also recused himself from the future proceedings. That's good, at least. Okay, Superior Court ruled out pending a written ruling denied Duke's request that Mensah be enjoined from entering the transfer portal. They're going to make him stay.
Probably. And also, Matt, from my understanding, there's no universal way to conduct these contract negotiations or creations by school. It's kind of just on a case-by-case basis from the university or their NIL collective. So you could do, we're going to pay you your entire contract money up front. We'll do it on a month-to-month basis. I would think that U of L is month-to-month because you had several guys that ended up going into the portal that played in our bowl game that probably wouldn't have otherwise if they didn't get their NIL check. So I think
it says here Under the terms of Duke's NIL contract with Mensa, any disputes must be settled through arbitration. The school said it filed a claim for arbitration on Monday and wants the judge to issue relief until the end of the arbitration process.
Yes, that's just a third party, essentially.
Like what?
Yeah, well, like a court. So,
but it's not a court case, right?
I mean, it technically is. You could think of arbitration that usually happens like two countries will be having lawsuits against one another and they go to another country to arbitrate the case. So
it's just it's like a mediator.
It is. It essentially is a mediator.
But it's still a judge that's going to be doing
it can be a judge. I mean, it's just in this case, it's an entity that both parties are legally binded to adhere to on their decision. So an arbitration ruling is essentially final. I mean, I guess you can appeal it, but yeah, the arbitration case, and this would go to a judge, probably just a district judge, maybe a circuit judge who would review it. There's no jury. It's just the judge deciding.
Wow. Yeah, if Mintz is permitted to continue his course of ignoring his contractual obligations and transfer to another school to compete in football and license his NIL rights to that school, Duke University will have no ability to protect its rights in an arbitral proceeding. Yeah, they're trying to save themselves because they know that they don't have a quarterback.
Yeah, you have to. You have to protect yourself, and if not, you have to get a lot of money back so you can get a quarterback soon.
Yeah.
So,
yeah, I mean, you're not mad at Duke for doing this at all. It's just if you get him back and then you have to play with him next season, what does that look like on the field for you?
Yeah, like if this is your team, you are petrified because, okay, is Darian Mensah just going to be on the team and just sit the bench? But if you're outside looking in, this is fantastic for the sport of football.
Yes, and I think that other schools are probably going to try to do this, follow the same contract setups that they had with Mensah, where they can give themselves the control. Make them sign that dotted line.
The consequences of my actions.
Yeah, here it is. Texter says here, it is Riddler texted back in and says, Will, don't take it personally. I've got to sniff out any Josh Hurd truthers and make sure they see the reality that he is doing a subpar job. I do it for the betterment of the program. High expectations deliver high results.
I agree, but shouldn't you also have high expectations for Jeff Brom? If he's got the ability to beat great teams, why can't he beat Cal? Why can't he beat, Pitt, Stanford, etc.?
Virginia.
And why are teams like Indiana, how we talked about earlier, they're blasting teams by 60 that they're supposed to beat, and we're struggling in the fourth quarter with 1-6 Boston College. So that's kind of what I was referring to. I love Jeff, and I'm glad he's our coach, but
Will's saying he doesn't deserve more money.
No, I'm not saying that. Well, I mean, he hasn't even signed his extension yet. So, if he wants more NIL funds, then go for it, man. And I think he has the capability to lead us to the promised land. But right now, if I were to say, yes, we're going to be without a doubt a playoff team because of our talent, I would be stupid to say that based on
what we've
the
seen.
results.
Yes, yeah, you're right. Riddler says, am I a Jeff Brom show? Question mark, question mark, question mark.
No, I think you're backing your guy.
Which in this day and age, you kind of have to.
Yeah, totally.
Podcast Random Thoughts guy texted in. He said, PRTG here. I texted this to Scoots this morning, but I have to get your all's thoughts. I have the tagline for IU's season. Given, not earned. Because they have all this money and had no hand in earning it. And then he sends a Isaiah Stewart gif as well because the Pistons got a victory last night over the Celtics, I'm assuming.
It was a great game.
Great game, for sure. Another texter says here, if you were locking the average grandma in a cage starting on Friday night with no food or water until Michael plays, does she survive? The average grandma. So she's
the average grandma.
She's pretty healthy, but, she can't go as many days as we could.
Maybe if you have...
But why is it got to be
If you have Wheel of Fortune reruns playing all day and she's in a comfortable recliner, maybe. But probably not.
You don't think so? Friday night?
Well, I mean, we play Virginia Tech on Saturday. I don't think he's coming back.
So you don't think she could live till Monday night?
From today? That's 6 days.
It says from Friday night.
Friday night.
God, I misread that. Well, 3 days, yeah, that'd be tough. But, yeah, she'd just be really hungry.
I think that she survives, but, I mean, she's pushing her last leg.
If we don't get the win Monday night.
Like I'm talking, if Mike Hill doesn't start, we might have to start making hospital calls.
If we go down big in that game Monday night, even though she's allowed to eat, I don't know, she might not have enough in her to withstand
take the snacks away from her.
If we go 5 minutes in and Michael hasn't seen the floor, but he's cleared to play, we might have to start,
Now we're worried about a heart attack. We're
getting
worried
a bowl
about
of soup or something.
What do you do if if he comes back in the first play of the game, he goes up for a layup and
Don't even say it. Don't even. Just stop talking. I'm gonna yell over you so the listeners can't hear it. Don't even put that in the air right now.
I think she survives. I'll say that the average grandma survives. Wait, no, it's in a cage, Will. So there's no recliner.
I mean, you could put a recliner in a cage.
How big's
though.
the cage?
Do you not get this meme, Roman? Have you ever seen this?
Yeah,
No.
the one of the grandmas standing there in the cage.
No.
It's like I'm not letting grandma out the cage until
This happens.
blank happens. Yeah.
I'm picturing like one of those cages when people have an illegal lion in their backyard.
I'm gonna try and find the picture. For you.
It's like a 6-foot tall cage. Probably it might be a 6x6. Honestly, there's a good amount of space, so you could definitely fit a recliner in there, and then just have her chilling. Maybe throw her some crackers every once in a while. But
I'll say she survives.
yeah. Good question though.
Texter says here, unfortunately, Corey Alexander will be on the call versus Duke, who was the last big name we beat on the road since
Is that the
January
truth? Like, is that
2020.
they have already announced that?
Probably because it's the Monday. Like what's that Monday called? Big Monday.
Big
Yeah,
Monday?
well, it's the first big Monday of the season, actually.
And they're putting Corey Alexander on it?
You know how they get with us.
No, it's got to be Jay Billis and Dan Schulman.
No, we're not. We're the second big game, aren't we?
Well, we're the 7 o'clock game here. Hang on, let me go.
We're the ESPN2 game, aren't we?
No,
No, we're the ESPN1.
So the two games that night in the top 25 are us at Duke and then Arizona at BYU, which is a great game, but it's a 9 o'clock game. You'll probably put, I would imagine they have Fran Fischilla on that game because he's the Big 12 guy.
What's the date for that game? January what?
26th.
26th.
Also, Roman, I'll send you the beams so you can look at the size of the cage.
You've definitely seen it before. There's no way you haven't.
Oh, I've seen this picture before.
yeah, yeah.
Yeah, I say she survives. I think so.
I would bet money, though, that it's Billis and Schulman. calling
This
our game.
says, at least the AI overview Google's given me, says Dan Schulman and Jay Billis. And then Chris Budden on the sideline.
Yeah.
That's tough.
Oh, no, that's from the last game. It's saying they don't have a listing for it yet, at least from what I'm looking at.
Where'd you see that, Star Wars? Send us a link so we can see who's on the call that night.
Because that actually, I won't watch it.
No, I'll put it on mute and put Paul Rogers on.
I won't be able to handle it. That dude actually, like, if there's a person on this earth that doesn't know ball, I guarantee you know more ball than Corey Alexander does.
Here's one thing I asked Will in the break that I want to ask. I want to just kind of restate. I asked Will we got asked in the Running with Roman show, Matt. If it's not Duke and it's not U of L, who he could see winning the ACC tournament this season in basketball. And he immediately said Virginia, no doubt. Quite literally didn't even hesitate for a second. And I kind of want to discuss the ACC with you guys a little bit because something about the way I watched Virginia, if you stay glued to those bigs, they're not going to get those 3-point attempts up, Will. I wasn't all that impressed with the athleticism out on the perimeter with their ball handlers.
No, I mean, they're not.
I get they play not perfect basketball, but they play a very balanced brand. The ball's going to go inside, out, and back in. If they see something they like, they'll play patient. They can play slow and fast, and they've got the size to rebound. Offensively, the offensive glass and the shot blocking, I feel like, is kind of what's giving them the edge. Outside of those two things, they're not outrageously good.
No, I mean, they're just a very well-coached and well-rounded team. They're just the opposite version of what Virginia typically is. They're the same buttoned up, we death by a million cuts, and we kind of just break you down, but the fast-paced version of that rather than we're going to win 55-50. They average 85 points a game, so they have a lot of offensive talent. They're a well-rounded roster. They have a lot of size. They do have a decent amount of athleticism, and they have good shooting, so they have the ability to keep themselves in any game against any team. Now, that doesn't mean that they're destined to win the ACC championship, but I would say they're probably going to be in the semifinals at least. And besides them, I said Clemson because their defense is so good. Brad Brownell, I mean, he was on the hot seat for years, but now he has officially established a solid culture and one that is continuous with different players. Miami, I really like them. I know they just lost the other night at Clemson, but they hung around for the whole game pretty much. I think Jay Lucas is a great coach. They have a lot of talent.
They're better than I thought they would be.
They're going to bother us when we play them.
Yeah.
So, yeah, I think that those three teams besides Duke or Louisville could win it. I don't think that North Carolina could win it. Highly doubt that Stanford, Cal, either of those teams. SMU maybe, but doubtful. I would say the dark horse teams would be Virginia Tech and SMU, and then your top 5 contenders would be the ones that we talked about.
NC State's been an impressive.
NC State fans hate Darian Williams. I don't know if you've seen any of this.
I haven't,
but Will Wade has gone off on reporters and post game shows to go to bat for Darian.
He's their best player
and their highest paid by a wide margin. And he was the preseason ACC Player of the Year. He's underperformed. They've underperformed. They've had some bad luck, honestly, but yeah, they got to show better results than that. I still think they have a decent chance at making the tournament, but right now they're on the outside looking in.
Yeah, they're beating the bad teams, which is what they need to do in their last handful of games. But when they've gone up against teams with a real pulse, outside of Ole Miss, they just haven't gotten the job done like they need to. But they have the chance to go and do that now in conference play. They have the chance to play Clemson on the road. They could get a big win tonight in that game. That could kind of change the narrative, I think, going forward with them, because they have some games that they should be able to win after that one before they get into some tough ones to end their season off in conference play. So
yeah, that's actually
their schedule's kind of perfectly set up.
It is, and that's a sneakily massive game for the ACC, not just NC State, because if NC State actually wins that game, because I think Clemson's going to make the tournament no matter what, but if NC State wins that road quad 1 game against a top 20 team, like you mentioned,
they're 5 teams maybe getting in, or 6 teams getting in.
Oh, we're probably looking at 8 ACC teams making it, in my opinion. I mean, you have Duke, North Carolina, Louisville, Clemson, Virginia, Miami. I think Virginia Tech's going to make it.
They kind of, not definitely, but I think those 5 or 6 definitely get in.
SMU is probably going to make it in.
They should.
And then SMU is probably on the borderline, but other borderline teams, like we just mentioned, NC State, Stanford, California. I don't think that Wake Forest has a chance. And then you have the bottom of the barrel teams like Georgia Tech, Notre Dame, Boston College, Pitt, and Florida State. They suck. They're not even going to make the NIT. So this is the best year for the ACC probably since 2021 in terms of
ranked
depth.
teams and teams that have an opportunity to make a tournament and be right there.
Yep.
The teams that aren't going to be ranked teams, but are still going to be on the cusp, maybe potential 2 or 3 bubble teams,
right.
I think is what's awesome finally about the ACC getting back to that point. A couple of different changes in coaches, a couple of different teams finally putting some more money into the basketball program, and we're starting to finally see the shift we want to see in the ACC. Will, I want to ask, Matt, we'll ask you first actually. Looking at the handful of games Louisville has going forward in our schedule, we've obviously got Virginia Tech this Saturday. We'll have Duke on Monday, and then we'll follow that up with SMU after that. What do you think Louisville needs to predict the record in those games if you had to? I know that's a tough question, but in these next 3 games, Virginia Tech, Duke, and Louisville, 2 of these games are on the home floor, 1 obviously in Cameron Indoor, before we get a couple of opponents that we feel like we'll be able to beat, Notre Dame and Wake Forest. Predict this record in this 3-game stretch to round out January.
I think easily you have to win both games on your home floor. That has to be a requirement. The Duke game, I don't like saying any game is a must-win, but if you're looking at the end of the butt end of Louisville's resume towards the end of the season, we do have plenty of quad 1 opportunities left on this schedule throughout moving forward. So I don't think we'll be in a lot of trouble of making the tournament or anything like that per se. But if you want to really bolster your resume and you want to be a national title contending team like we expected in the beginning of the season when this roster is being constructed, that Duke game, you really need that one, especially after you had a 9-point lead going into half, which probably should have been ballooned even higher with how we were playing. Yeah. That game, if Mike Hill comes back and you're at full strength like you should be, that you need to win that game. But if I'm taking 2 of the 3 is a requirement, and it has to be both home games. I'm sorry. As much as I want to say that you got to go into Cameron Indoor and win that game, we need to start protecting our home court a lot better than we have been. This has not been a volatile environment for a couple of years now. We've had a couple games where here and there, I think Duke last year was big. This year against Kentucky was obviously big, but it's not on a night in and out basis. And I think a lot of that comes down to kind of what we talked about yesterday on the Dalton Pence show, Roman, is that Louisville just hasn't been threatening on their home court in the past couple of years, or at least in a long while. And I think that you got to start doing that by not only beating the teams you should beat at home, by dominating the teams you should dominate at home. I don't think Virginia Tech is a team we should dominate. I think they're great. I think they're a really good team. Like Will said, they've lost 3 ACC games, all to buzzer beaters. I can't imagine how that would feel if I'm a Virginia Tech fan watching that. But at the same time, Louisville is widely more talented. I think that Pat Kelsey overall is a better coach at this moment. That is a game you should win. You need to take both of those at home, and you need to play Duke close. It needs to be competitive. And if we can do that, I'll look towards the end of the season and say, you know what, that was a great 3-game stretch that got us going for the end of ACC play.
It would be. I think we should be able to go 2-1 in these games. I hope that the Duke game can be one. It really elevates your season, I think, especially with seeding later on as well.
If you win the Duke game, it's fine. Everything else that's happened this season, if you win at Cameron Indoor, we're good.
You're good. You kind of solidify yourself as one of the top teams, definitely in the ACC from that point on. But with the rankings, it'll be tough for you to dip at that point too. It's easier we're in a spot where we can waver pretty easily still, Will. What do you see in these last 3?
Well, Matt, I think we should probably go over this coming out of the break too, but I was just thinking about this. We have 13 games left. I think that we go 9-4 the rest of the way. And I think we beat Virginia Tech, we lose to Duke, we beat SMU. I think that our last 4 losses are at Duke, at SMU, at North Carolina, and at Clemson. Because we do have several really tough road games left.
And as Stalwart just said here, sorry to interrupt you, Will, we've never won at Clemson under Brownell, and although he hasn't won at our place either.
No, and I don't really think that's going to change. Clemson's DNA directly correlates with teams that have beaten us. So, yeah, I mean, maybe we can change that by that point. We don't play them till the end of February, but I would say we go 9-4 the rest of the way, and that would put us at 22-9 to end the season. So that gives you a chance if you go into the ACC tournament, you win a few games, you can probably be a 4 or 5 seed. So
that's what we want at minimum, right?
Yep. Mm-hmm.
We're going to head out here. My last segment that was that one. We're going to have Matt Childress and Will Wigginton continuing on here for the rest of the Mike Rutherford Show. 4 to 5:30 you'll have them, and then the Ticket Punchers from 5:30 to 6 with Matt Childress and the other guys with the Ticket Punchers. Thank you all so much for listening to this. It's been the Mike Rutherford Show right here on the Big X, presented by United Mechanical and Nexus Plus. Stay tuned. About an hour and a half left here to go. We'll be back right here on the other side.
from the start of the show. It's the Matt and Will show today. For the rest of the time, where he's going to hold us down. Will, I want to jump into something real quick. I know that you were going about the remaining schedule for Louisville basketball. I know you said you want to touch on it on the way out here. So I know you kind of gave your quick breakdown of Louisville's possible wins and losses for the remainder of the season and where you tend to see them finishing out. What leads you to believe? Where does that stem from? So, do you what is your best possible outcome for the remainder of the season for Louisville basketball? What's your worst possible outcome you believe from what we've seen so far?
It's a great question. I would say the best possible outcome, honestly, I think we would still have 2 more losses, and that would include Duke and Clemson on the road. And besides that, we would win the rest of them. So instead of going 22-9, we would go 24-7 the rest of the way, going into the ACC tournament, I mean. So that would probably be best case. I don't think that we can run the table. I just think the conference schedule is too hard, and we're having too many tough road games to just run the table. It's not going to happen, especially with what we've seen so far.
I can fully agree with that. I feel like there hasn't been I feel like we've had a pretty sizable sample size now of what this Louisville team is. Now, obviously, a lot of that hasn't been with Michael Brown. So whenever he does officially come back, we will get a better idea of where we're looking kind of down the road for where this Louisville basketball team can go. But this was a really good topic you brought up because I took some notes earlier that I wanted to get your official take on. And because I know that a lot of Louisville fans have been really down on this team, especially before the Pitt game, to the point where whenever Pitt was out, whenever that game was over, it was, even myself was watching it kind of in a negative light, whereas you're looking at it and saying, okay, we beat this team by 40. We should have won by a decent amount, but do we have to shoot the lights out to beat some of these teams? Are we going to be able to pick it up defensively when these games get nitty-gritty? Are we going to be able to win games that we should be winning by a sizable margin when we're not shooting, 15 for 29 from 3?
Yeah.
Are we going to be able to have an off shooting night, whether it's against a good team or a more poor team, and still be able to handle business? And the thing that's funny is, I get that a lot of these are based on Michael Brown not being on the field, but a lot of metrics still like Louisville right now. Like, for example, like we all know that, one, I thought before the Pitt game, I believed we were going to drop out of the AP top 25. I think that the dominant win kind of helped us stay in there. So we're at 23 in the AP. Coaches poll, we're actually a little bit higher. We're in 21. But these are where it kind of gets interesting. In the net rankings, we're still the 16th best team in the country, along with Ken Pom at 16. And even Torvik has us at 14. So a lot of these metrics that we do look at towards the end of the season when it comes to March and when it comes to building, the bracket towards the end of the season, they still really like Louisville. What are some reasons do you believe that Louisville fans should have hope and should be looking at these in a more positive light, and should really, do you think that they should hold these numbers and these metrics pretty tightly, or do you think that tape is kind of out on the Louisville Cardinals of the season?
Well, I think that means that you can jump up the seed lines pretty quickly, depending on who you beat and how much you beat them by. Since our metrics are still pretty high, relatively speaking, that means that the numbers or the computers really like our offensive numbers. And our defense, even though it's pretty porous, I haven't checked Ken Pom in a while. Let me actually go see what our defensive efficiency rating is. So we're 16th in Ken Pom. We have the 7th ranked offense and the 37th ranked defense. So that averages out to kind of around where we are ranked right now. And we're 13-5. I think we have 3 quad 1 wins now after Kentucky beat Tennessee on the road. So we just have to maintain. Last year we went into the tournament with 3 quad 1 wins, and we were an 8 seed. So that means right now we have so many more opportunities at quad 1 wins. We were just talking about our schedule. I mean, you got to think that we're going to be playing. I can't remember how many more quad 1 opportunities that we have, but Clemson's going to be one on the road. Miami, Duke, SMU, definitely on the road, maybe at home. North Carolina is going to be a quad 1 opportunity on the road, and that's just off the top of my head. I mean, Wake Forest probably will be as well, even though they're not very good, but it's a road game. So we have so much more margin for error this season than we did last year, and we went into the ACC tournament with 5 losses. So, or no, actually, it was 6 losses, I think. So if we just pick up, say, 3 more quad 1 wins, we're in line for a 4 to 5 seed. And That's why I would say the numbers like us, is because they're projecting us to reach that mark rather than going off of what the results to this point have shown.
I think that's a positive way to look at it. I think that there are a lot of positive ideas to look for towards the end of this season. I think that Louisville has if anything, if you're looking at a lot of these teams that are, there's quite a few teams in the college basketball universe right now that are kind of underperforming coming into the start of their conference play, and we're kind of having to improve, I know that we're not the only team battling with injuries. Like Kansas is another one that, they just recently got Darren Peterson back to full health, and we've seen how much of an impact he's had. I think that when you're looking at these metrics and when you're looking at the numbers themselves, for example, Louisville is number 11 on KenPom in the country for scoring margin at plus 18.4. But at the same time, they are number 233 in the country in bench points at 21.39 coming in this season. That was I feel like that's a big margin of error for us in terms of when we were looking at the roster construction at the beginning of the season. We felt that this is easily one of the deepest teams in the country. This is easily one where you don't have to rely on your starting five to put up 33, 36 minutes a game. You're going to have guys like Hasten Pryor, like Adrian Woolley, like Kenai Ruth. Even Zugris could give you a couple good minutes here and there, depending on what efficiency we're playing with and the kind of sets we're running out there. So looking down the stretch, it seems to me that one thing we need to focus on is, I get that Michael Brown is a big talking point, and bringing him back obviously elevates this team to the point where a lot of us are to believe that Michael is what we built this team around. I haven't seen anything on the court that would tell me otherwise, that that's not true. What do you think Pat Kelsey needs to do moving forward to basically raise those numbers up, get our bench more involved, so that we can give guys like Ryan Conwell and Isaac McNeely the minutes of rest that are desperately needed? I know we got to give them those a little bit in the Pitt game. Ryan Conwell, I think, only played 28 or 29 minutes, which was good for him. But in these big matchups, our bench just has not stepped up. What do you think we need to do down the stretch to kind of alleviate that pressure on the starting lineup?
This might be a bit of a long-winded answer, so just stay with me. So the one thing I would do is, or one of the first things I would do is run more plays, set plays, not just like, oh, hey, we're going to do multiple pick and roll action. It's with the intent to get guys open consistently. It's not to say that we need to run plays like we're Dan Hurley and UConn and basically run sets on 95% of our possessions, but to increase what we already have, because right now we don't play deliberately, I would say, and that's one of the biggest changes from last season that frustrates me, is that we kind of just play like chickens with our heads cut off. We're running around. We say we want to play fast, but we don't really get fast break points. We kind of just push the ball up, and then teams have a half-hearted effort to stop our break, and we're just like, okay, yeah.
That has been such a frustrating area of this team for me this season. I feel like there's countless times, game in and game out, I'm watching us, finally get a really good stop on defense to where we're actually able to get out in transition. And it'll be either a one-on-one or maybe a one-on-two that you're actually favored in because the second defender is a little farther away from the play. But we'll touch the paint, and instead of either trying to be physical and go open to somebody or try and make maybe take a mid-range if you need to, or find the open three in the transition, we touch the paint and either dribble out to the three-point line or try and swing it out to somebody else in transition, and basically giving the other team ample opportunity to get back on defense and get into their defensive set. It just feels like when we're in transition, we're not capitalizing on these moments of great defense, and we're only struggling in the half-court sets, usually night in and night out.
Yeah, and then on the flip side of that, if it's not us just kind of giving up on the break, we'll have numbers on the fast break, and somebody like this has happened countless times this season. It just makes me, it just infuriates me so much. Ryan Conwell, Adrian Woolley, and Javon Hadley are the main culprits. They'll just go up, having numbers on a fast break, go up without passing the ball, and take the dumbest possible layup you've ever seen.
Yeah.
Either it gets pitched or it doesn't go in, and they get a rebound and a run out for themselves, and they score. It's happened so many times this season, and it's frustrating beyond belief because that shows a lack of control by your players and by your coaching staff. So we don't really run the break effectively because we either stop when we have numbers or we take the dumbest possible shot and just we get nothing out of it. It's actually a net negative. One of the only times that the fast break has actually worked out for us this year, I feel like, was in the Kentucky game. We ran pretty well. We didn't have a ton of fast break points, but we took advantage of our opportunities and we passed the ball. a lot moving up the court. That hasn't really been there this season. And besides that, in terms of stylistic changes, you got to shoot less threes. You have to be more efficient with your shots. And that means taking some mid-range, taking some floaters. I mean, we were talking about earlier, can we beat good teams with the situation we're in right now? And I would say yes. I mean, I just pulled up some box scores from last year against Clemson in both games and against North Carolina at home, because those were two teams that have similar styles of play and similar roster makeup in terms of size, that have bothered us under Pat Kelsey and handled us. But we won in all three of these games. Against Clemson, the first time around, we shot 8 of 27 from 3, but we beat them by 10. In the ACC tournament, we shot 6 of 22 from 3, and we won. And then against North Carolina at home, we shot 6 of 26 from 3, and we won by 13. The difference was we got to the free throw line we had a sizable more amount of free throw attempts than the opponent did. We had, we had 12 more against Clemson in the first game. We had 8 more against them in the second one, and against North Carolina, we had 7 more against them. So we need to get into the paint, get to the free throw line more, because we are a good free throw shooting team. It just feels like it's very boom or bust. We don't really score in the paint very well, but we're still trying to use that as our alternative option if the three-pointer isn't going in or if teams are running us off the line. You need to open up the paint a bit by making teams respect your mid-range shot, which will allow guys like Sananda Frew or Javon Hadley, Kenai Roots to get easy buckets or easier buckets around the rim, because teams, they just know how to scout us so easily. It's either take away the three and funnel them into the paint, or just prevent them from getting any paint points whatsoever and making them shoot a bunch of threes that they're going to miss, because we take a lot of threes and we miss a lot of threes. One thing that's been disappointing this year is we were supposed to have way better shooting, and it feels relatively the same as last season. Maybe we make more threes a game, but just the amount that go in does not feel like it's markedly better. This roster depth is not anywhere close to being better than it was last season, which is also a disappointment. And that's on Pat Kelsey for bringing in several guys that either can't play at this level or you're redshirting. That's kind of arrogance, in my opinion, rather than short-sightedness. And, yeah, you just need to change your style of play to fit more of what last season's team did. I'm not saying that we need to just play as slow as possible, but just be more deliberate with how you play the game, run more sets, and play better defense. That's what it comes down to.
I think you're right on all those levels. For me, you mentioned a really good point of we're just not getting into the paint. We're not getting to the free throw line as much as we were last season. And that has been a cause for, I would say, what's the word I would use? It's just upsetting. It's upsetting for its kind of devolving of the fan base in terms of, I feel like we're getting very angry at watching this team, and it's become less enjoyable to watch this team in terms of, you bring up another point that you feel like this team's disparity in shooting is not far off from what it was last year, and this team has the talent shooting-wise, I think, is far better than was last year. I don't think that's even in question. I think we have a lot more shooters on this team this year before than we had last year. But I feel like it's a little weird because last season we started out really slow, really early. I mean, we couldn't hit the side of a barn in the first 5 to 7 games we played, whether it was Ole Miss, whether it was Tennessee, at home, away, it did not matter. And then we kind of heated up towards the beginning of ACC play. That's where you started to see us, I feel like we were running more sets for guys like Rain Smith. It seemed like Chucky Hepburn and Terrence Edwards' jump shot kind of evolved throughout the season and got better and got better. We found places for them to come in. But like you said, you brought the numbers up. We weren't shooting anywhere near as many three-pointers in those games. Because, one, I don't think we had the talent for that. Two, I think that Pat Kelsey had to adjust so early in the season to our style of play and kind of hound it in and wrangle it in as more of a defensive-minded way of play for last season that we haven't had to do this year. And I feel like a lot of that comes down to our hot start of shooting this season where, our first couple of games, I felt like guys like Ryan Conwell couldn't miss. I said it multiple times on this show and on other podcasts and other shows that I don't know a player in the last at least decade that I would feel more comfortable taking a shot in a Louisville uniform than Ryan Conwell. And I think in the last 4 or 5 games, that has kind of subsided for me. I feel like he has his situations where he has the issue of he rushes shots when he's not shooting well to start the game. He shot hunts. He looks for his shot. He's one of those guys where, shoot or shoot. You miss a lot in a row, you try and find one to go in to kind of get you in rhythm, and it kind of puts us out of our motion, puts us out of our mojo on the offensive end. We seem to run fewer sets and we have a lesser of an offensive identity, I feel, when Ryan Conwell is bringing the ball up the floor, and I don't think that's necessarily on him. He's playing out of position. So I wanted to ask you this. In the past 2 games, one being Virginia, which, wasn't a great outcome. We didn't start very well, but in the second half, you saw the intensity kind of pick up. You saw the effort level kind of pick up. And against Pittsburgh, we saw a little more as well. You and Roman already talked about the 2 big setup and how you didn't really care for it. How have you felt about seeing Javon Hadley kind of take over that ball handler position, that kind of one position on some of the offensive sets we run, to get the ball out of Ryan Conwell and Isaac Neely's hands, to kind of let them play their own position and let Javon Hadley beat the facilitator? Because I feel like we've seen that a couple games so far. Virginia, I felt like it was a little more effective than we thought it would be. He got to the line pretty efficiently. He had a really good night against Virginia, and then Pittsburgh, another great night, got to the line decently efficiently. Do you think it's something we allocate down the road in bigger matchups, maybe possibly against Duke, or do you think that that's more of just an experiment? We're not going to see it in these games against tougher competition.
It could be an experiment, but I think it's more so just out of necessity. I think when Pat was talking in press conferences after the Virginia game and before the Pitt game, was kind of alluding to needing guys to step up and then also trying to alleviate the stress from guys like Ryan Conwell. And I think that was just what the staff came up with. And I hope that we move away. I don't hate the 2 big lineup. I think it kind of constricts you a bit because you're not able to run the offense that you want, but also you're not gaining that much defensively because guys like Ollie can be picked on in the pick and roll. I think what we just need to do is get away from the 3-guard lineup, and when Mikel comes back, have a starting lineup of Mikel, Ryan Conwell, Javon Hadley, Kenai Roots, and Sananda Faru. I think that's our best 5 lineup. And the 3-guard lineup, it just hasn't given us enough to justify the defensive deficiencies that we face from it. Because, I talked about running more sets, but one thing that is different from this season to last season is that when we are running sets to get our guys open, and absolutely wide open looks, they're not making them at the same rate that we did last season. And that's obviously just unfortunate, but you're having less makes on your sets and you're running less sets in general. So something needs to change, and I think that's just running more sets to give yourself the opportunity to have solid offense and pace and consistency, because this team really waxes and wanes a lot, and that is a result of our play style and lack of, I would say, just, I don't know the right way to describe it, but when we're playing and we just kind of are lollygagging around, it's like, oh, just play basketball. We're a player-led team. We don't run a ton of sets. We just play ball. When you're in a situation where your team is not running sets and your shot's off and you're just playing loose, that allows teams to come back, or if it's a close game, for them to blow you out. And we've had multiple examples of that this season and last season to an extent, but the Duke game is an example of us starting hot and kind of just dying out as the game went on. You and I talked about it. 5 minutes into the second half, we knew we were going to lose, and we still had the lead. But we knew we were going to lose because we knew we weren't going to make any adjustments, and our fire had gone out, and we didn't have any construction to allow us to maintain our presence in the game or just to overtake Duke like we did in the first half. And, yeah, I'm kind of just all over the place in saying this, but basically we just need more consistency and deliberation with how we play.
No, you're 100% right, and all those points you just made fall on Pat Kelsey. I know you can sit there and say that there's issues on defense in terms of efficiency and effort in general. Like, I know during the Virginia game, I saw a dude shoot from the corner wide open at the end of a shot clock 4 or 5 times, and that's just because Ryan Conwell or Isaac Neely sagging off or helping at the wrong time, and they punish us on our help. But something that really frustrated me at the beginning of the season, you brought it up against Duke, where when Louisville tends to slow down, when they tend to slow down, take the foot off the gas, you almost know, okay, how much better are we than this team? Is this a team that's better than us and we got up early, or is this a team that we can just kind of stomp this out? And like you said, we kind of get the feeling of it as soon as it starts happening. You can kind of get that oh no feeling, or the okay, we can kind of get out of this hole right here. We can kind of figure this out. One other point I would say, one other example is the Indiana game. The Indiana game, we start up 16-0, I think it was, or was it 14-0 before they scored? And you come down, you get a dumb turnover. Okay, they go back, get a quick 3 points. Then you come down the floor again. You get an egregious Ryan Conwell offensive foul, which I didn't particularly agree with when I first saw it. But once again, it's a turnover. You give up 3 more points, and now it's 14-6 or 16-6. Those moments right there, I don't care if we're up 75 points. Those are moments where, as a coach, you need to step in and take accountability for. I get this is a player-led team. I get that we're up. But against Power 4 opponents, maybe that stuff works in the Group of 5 level. If it's Power 4 opponents, they will take advantage of you. They will take advantage of that. And it happened against Duke. There were plenty of times against Duke we had a lead early on, or especially at the beginning of the second half, that you felt, okay, they get on a quick 4-point run to start the half, we stop play right here. We stop it, and we regroup. And we hadn't done that all season. And it frustrated me time in and time out because, yes, in Indiana, we did end up winning by a decent margin. We put them kind of in a buffer zone. They never really were able to fully get into it. They had a few good runs there, knocked it down to like 6 or 7 points a couple of times, but then you win by a good margin. But against Duke, the same thing happens. You come out in the second half with a 9-point lead. You start entirely flat in the second half. They get on a quick run, make the game too short, and you don't call any timeouts. There were people literally in the stands screaming at the beginning of the Virginia game when it got to 6-0, when they had hit 2 threes in a row, and like, call a timeout. Stop it right here. We've missed 3 straight threes. We can't get anything going. Call a timeout. And you don't. And you let the lead balloon to 14-0. Now you're on the button. You're on the opposite end of the situation. We saw it in Pitt, where we were up by, I think, 28 or 30 points. And in one possession, Pittsburgh got back-to-back offensive boards. And Pat Kelsey immediately calls timeout as soon as he gets the ball, gathers the guys together, and they come out the next possession, put up a pretty good defensive set, and they keep the ball rolling. I get that it's against Pitt. I get that's an experiment. That's kind of down you're so far ahead that you can kind of look at it in a negative light. But do you think that one simple change in Pat Kelsey's philosophy, a sense where I don't care if we're up, I'm stopping the play here, because if you've watched college basketball for a long time, the best coaches in college basketball, they do not care if they're up by 80. They don't care if they're up by 8. They will stop play whenever they see fit to keep that lead going. Do you think that spells positivity down the road for Pat Kelsey, or do you think that maybe it was just a situational instance we should overlook?
No, it's extremely frustrating, and I think you make a great point with that, because that's one thing that I was upset with Chris Mack about when he was here, is his propensity to take timeouts with him or take too long to call a timeout. And he said his reasoning behind that is because he wanted his players to play through it. And one frustrating answer I heard from Pat Kelsey in his post-game press conference against Virginia was that he didn't call a timeout until it was 14-0 because he felt like we were still getting the shots that we wanted and we were playing solid enough defense. But you can't look at it that way. You can't look at it as if, well, we're getting what we want, they're just not going in. No, you're down 14-0 at home, and you came out flat. And he said that wasn't the difference in the game in his mind because we brought it back to 4 points on multiple occasions. If you didn't get put in that situation to begin with, you wouldn't have had to rally back to make it a 4-point game. I thought that was a nonsensical and really dumb answer, honestly, from a coach who is a basketball junkie and relies on analytics. I don't care what quality of shots you think you're getting. Have a feel for the game. And did we still end up with 2 timeouts at the end of the game?
Yeah.
It's just dumb. Use your timeouts. Use them. Rick Pitino was great at understanding. He had great situational awareness as a coach. It's like, we might only be down by 2 or 3 points, but I need to call a timeout right now to get into our guys and let them know you're not playing up to the standard, and either you play up to it or you're going to be on the bench next to me. And Pat did say that, that is the best motivator, is putting people on the bench, but he doesn't really have the ability to right now. That's his fault. Sorry, that's your fault. You can't complain about it. You can't make excuses about it. That's your problem. You didn't fix it. And kind of what you were talking about with the Duke game, and us kind of just faltering, and we knew we were going to lose with 15 minutes left on the clock. That just shows the lack of structure in organization. And a guy like John Shire, who going into 3 games with Pat Kelsey, he has been down and adjusted and won by double digits. That's a coach who is well organized and knows what adjustments to make against a coach who's ill prepared and too focused on being a player-led team when his players don't respond.
Those are great points, and we're going to touch on them right when we get back. This is the Mike Rutherford Show with Matt and Will. Stick with us on. We'll be right back here on the Big X. Big basketball fan, big NBA fan. I want to get your takes on a few things, but before we get back to what we were discussing, I want to go back to the Game Day Men's Health text line really fast. Texter says, I would say best possible outcome would be the 2019-20 season, which we finished 24-7 just before the ACC tournament was canceled by the COVID pandemic being declared. I don't hate this take.
Yeah, that's exactly what I said. Best case would be is 24-7. So
you guys are right on there. I don't hate that take. I think that is a respectable record, I think that there's a lot of fans out there, whether you are a Louisville fan or a fan of an ACC team in general, or you're just looking outside in, that are still getting used after the horrendous play we saw last season of accepting that the ACC is just better this year. And some of these teams that we are losing to and we have lost to are, one, by far exceeding expectations. I don't think any of us really predicted. We knew Virginia would be okay. We didn't think that it would be as good as they are right now. I mean, that's a bona fide tournament team we're playing. We played them tough. I feel like
Duke, they're probably going to be a top 5 seed.
Top 5 seed? Yeah. Duke, obviously national title contender. The one thing that is a common variable, common denominator in both of those matchups is Pat Kelsey gets outcoached. And, Will, you already mentioned it, that in the multiple times we've played John Shire under Pat Kelsey right now, that man has absolutely obliterated Pat Kelsey in the second half. I'm pretty sure we've led John Shire in every first half we've played against him.
Yeah, that's what I was saying. The first game, I think it was 38-33 at halftime. Last year's ACC championship was about the same score and same result in terms of point differential. And this year we were up by 9 at halftime, just a little bit more, and we lost by more than we did in the first 2 games. So I think the best way to describe the coaching mismatch in the second half between Shire and Pat Kelsey is a dissection. John Shire has absolutely demolished Pat Kelsey in terms of coaching adjustments and basically the framework of how his team plays coming out of this into the second half compared to Pat Kelsey. And that was shown the other night against Virginia, too. Ryan Odom is a great coach. He didn't become the first coach to beat a 1 seed as a 16 seed for nothing. And he wasn't a great coach at VCU for nothing. And now he's showing his chops at Virginia. And he's a great coach. They have a great system. And he outcoached Pat the other night. Rick Barnes, 2 times in a row, outcoached Pat. I was kind of thinking about this. There have been multiple games, because Duke is an example. It's kind of an egregious one of us having a big lead and then losing it and losing by double digits. There have been other games where we just got straight up blown out the entire way. It was a wire-to-wire victory. Virginia is a light example of that because we did give them a fight, but Tennessee both times. And then there are other examples where we're in these games, and then all of a sudden we're down 15 points. Ole Miss is an example. Creighton in the NCAA tournament was a big example. I don't know if people remember. I think we were up 15-13, and it was 29-25 halfway through the first half, and then we just got destroyed the rest of the way. We were absolutely dismantled. So that just shows to me these good coaches that we're going up against have a feel for the game and know how to adjust to attack our weaknesses that we're presenting. While Pat Kelsey's mindset is, well, what's working is what's working. Even if it stops working, I'm going to keep doing that same thing because it worked previously, which is really stupid, honestly. He doesn't change his defensive approaches. Our offense is the same. That's why it's so frustrating. It's not that we're 13-5 and we've lost multiple games by double digits. It's not really that. It's the definition of insanity, of doing the same thing over and over and expecting different results. And we get those different results, but against bad teams, which I think in Pat Kelsey's mind gives him the justification to keep playing that same style without any adjustments whatsoever against good teams that it doesn't work against. So I think he's starting to finally understand that some adjustments would need to be made before, during, and after games against good teams. I think he's a good coach still. I'm satisfied with him. I mean, we've lost, 12 games, 13 games since he started coaching here. He's completely turned us around. I appreciate him, but we're not up to the standard that we need to be at right now, and that's a result of his roster construction and his game management, which I think both can be fixed.
I don't disagree with you. There's a couple more texts here from the same person we're going to get to, but I want to ask you something, Will, you spoke on with these situations where when Pat Kelsey does go up against coaches of a decent caliber. Creighton last year, that's a great coach as well, but it's a very physical team, and they had some great talent on that team. You're right that it seems like they have a decent game plan starting out, but then whenever the other team punches back at us, we don't really have an answer for it. How much of that do you think it comes into play of Pat Kelsey just not being able to adjust, and in the sense of he doesn't really have a secondary game plan, or do you think that comes more heavily on he's the player-led coach. He wants the players to overcome this adversity, kind of like Chris Mack used to want to. And he wants them to fight through this adversity and overcome these obstacles, where he should really just be stepping in and taking over his coaching role. Which one do you think you would lean more towards?
I don't know. That's a tough question to answer. I think it's a bit of a mix, because there are, while I do think there are some parallels to Chris Mack and Pat Kelsey, I do think it's a bit overblown.
Yeah.
I mean, Chris Mack, he was not a great in-game coach. He was not an incredible adjuster, but he's not as bad as Pat. And we didn't get blown out against good teams like we do against Pat. We were in pretty much all the games against top-tier teams that we played under Mack, and we beat several of them. I mean, people, I think, just forget, because of how things ended, how things started. And obviously, you have the Duke collapse. We collapsed against Virginia, actually, in his first season as well. People don't really remember that, but we had a lead. We hit like a half-court shot by Jordan Nwora to go into halftime, and we ended up losing handily. But it's not to the same extent. We played to our competition, but not down to our competition necessarily. So it's a bit different, but Pat, he is wanting to be player-led. I don't think it's necessarily arrogance that prevents him from adjusting. I don't think he has an incapability of adjusting in game. I just think it's a bit of stubbornness and belief in his play style and his roster, and pride in his system. And I think his pride and belief are a bit damaged right now, which is why I think you're seeing the change in his tone and how he came out against Pitt, just firing away. Now, the question is, are we going to maintain that? Is our approach going to change at all once we get punched in the mouth again? That's yet to be seen. So I don't want to say for certain one way or another that Pat has an inability to do this or that. I'm just saying so far he has that. But I do believe that he has the capability to make all the necessary changes for us to turn this around.
I think I agree with you totally. I think that, as you said, we haven't really seen it happen so far, so you can't really believe one way or the other. You know, I don't want to sit here and say that a coach that we've hired at the Power 4 level just has the incapability to adjust in a heated situation. I think that he definitely does. I feel like last season, you kind of got a glimpse of it in the terms of I felt that Pat Kelsey was one of the best coaches in the country when coming out of timeouts, coming out of halftimes, and just dead balls in general. I mean, I felt like we were always, if we were down or even if we were up and Pat Kelsey took a timeout, you knew that next set, whether we got points off of it or not, was going to be a well-drawn-up system in terms to either get Rain Smith open, get Chucky Hepburn down on the block, or get, easy oop to James Scott or Terrence Ferguson, give him a nice ISO on a mismatch and let him go to work. I feel like we just haven't seen that at all this season. I felt like we saw it a little bit more against Pitt. I feel like, but that's also, you're playing with a really big lead. You can kind of switch things around and play a different style of basketball when you're doing that, kind of experiment a little bit. But we haven't seen that to the extent that we saw last season. I think that's really upset a lot of the fan base, because that was your bread and butter. That's what you had success with last year. Once again, I want to stress that the ACC was a lot easier last year, so you had those numbers are a little bit flowed. But then again, you also had ACC Defensive Player of the Year as your starting point guard, who was averaging about 35 to 37 minutes a game. We just don't have that on this roster either, and that comes down to Pat Kelsey. You have a guy who, rallied this group around the defensive mind, got Terrence Ferguson to buy in, got James Scott to buy in, got Javon Hadley to buy in terms of, okay, we don't have the offensive prowess we wanted to going into the season. We need to lock it down defensively. And this team has said after games, we're going to do that. We're going to take it upon ourselves. We're going to cut off our coach in the middle of his speech after a loss, and we're going to take it upon ourselves and gain a defensive identity, show more effort, show more efficiency, play at a more calm state. I feel like when we're playing defense, it's way too hectic out there sometimes. I feel like we're almost scared to guard anybody on the ball, and we're like hedging screens too many times. We're getting caught behind the ball handler way too many times. I think it's on Pat Kelsey. I think that this is the moment where you had such a different team last year that could be that player-led team like Pat Kelsey wants. The guys who step up on their own, and you don't have to tell them what to do. They know what to do. It's the same system of when you were a kid or when you were playing sports in middle school, high school, and you made a bad play. Maybe you got a dumb yellow card for a handball or this and that, or you made a stupid foul in transition and gave up an and once, something stupid like that that's on you. You already know as the player you messed up. So does your parent have to come over and tell you that you messed up? You already know. And that's the part that's on the players. I feel like there's minimal accountability on both ends. I feel like Pat Kelsey isn't really holding guys accountable like we like to see, but I feel like the guys also aren't holding themselves accountable as well. I feel like they're kind of getting to that point, like you mentioned earlier, Will, where they'll get a lead, they'll play with it, and then as soon as adversity strikes, they just kind of fall over and roll on their backs and let them rub their bellies.
And you're totally right. And that comes from a lack of identity on both sides of the ball. One thing, too, like I just want to kind of conceptualize the tempo point I made earlier, is that this year, right now, we are 61st in tempo. Last year, we finished 90th in the country in tempo. So we're about 30 spots higher. We're 12 spots worse currently in defensive efficiency, but we're about 24 spots higher in offensive efficiency. But right now, I do feel like that's inflated by a lot of cupcake games that we played so far because we're not even to the meat of conference play. But I digress. So we don't have an identity on either side of the ball, really, like we did last season. I guess we have more of one on offense, which is take a lot of threes and miss a lot of threes, but we don't have a consistent style of attack that is successful. And defensively, we're kind of just there. One way I describe how we played this season is that we wait for teams to hit us first. We never really come out and are the aggressors. We were against Kentucky. That was about it. Other times, we're kind of just going with the flow of the game and letting
you're just hitting a few shots here and there. The other team isn't.
Yeah, we're just letting the team that we're playing dictate the style of play. We never try to impose our will on others. We let them impose their will on us, especially teams that have an ability to stop our three-point game, which is any team with the pulse, really. So that's what needs to be adjusted, is figuring out a way to maximize the talent on this roster without getting away from what you do best as a coach. So that's what Mark Pope has had to do. It's his fault for how he's constructed his roster, because they don't play at all how you would want a Mark Pope coach team to do. And right now with Pat Kelsey, you could kind of say the same, but it's a little bit better. I mean, we just don't play well enough to fit the style of play that Pat wants to play, but he's stubbornly trying to maintain that approach. You can't. If you want to be a successful team, I think he is beginning to realize that. Slow the game down. Figure out a defensive identity and be a bit more hard-nosed, because last year, you could say on defense, we were an aggressive point-of-attack man-to-man defense. We aren't really that anymore. We pick up at half court and we get blown by. Just think of Caleb Foster. He didn't really need picks to get past us. He kind of just walked right by us.
His first step is just quick enough to get by anybody on our roster.
And it's Caleb Foster. I mean, let's be honest. He's a good player, solid defender, not the type of guy you'd expect to just get buckets on you wherever he wants, whenever he wants. He could literally pick his spot and get to it without obstruction by us. That's alarming. And on offense last year, we were a great pick-and-roll team. We played slower, more deliberately, and we got efficient shots. We actually did what Pat Kelsey wants to do, which is hunt great. We took a lot of great shots last year. Missed a lot of them, but we made a lot of them too, which led us to be successful. This year, we're kind of just throwing up stuff, hoping it goes in, and that's a recipe for failure, which is why right now we're failing.
I think in terms of, like you said, this team isn't coming out and just punching teams in the mouth originally. I think that can be said to, like you said, I think a lot of that is roster construction. I feel like, you're banking on Michael Brown being that primary facilitator, as well as the guy who, when things are going tough and you can't find the open shots, he'll go and get you a bucket. He'll go into somebody's chest. He'll put his body on the line, and we haven't had him for a little bit. But I think the primary reason behind that is, one, you can't punch a team in the mouth. You can't assert yourself into a game unless it's on the defensive end as well. You need to turn defense into offense, and this team does not do that. They try and turn offense into defense in a way, and it makes no sense. For example, Louisville this year is number 4 in the country on three-point field goals made per game at 11.9, but is 128th in three-point field goal percentage per game at 34.8. 128th is not great by itself, not only compared to this team is 126th in the country in three-point field goal defense at 35.1. You physically cannot shoot as many threes Louisville does at the efficiency they do, but give up more threes than you're making every single game. That just can't happen in a percentage-wise. That can't happen, and it also leads to my last point here. Louisville is 309th in fouls per game. We're averaging 19.6 fouls per game. We are living in the double bonus in this game. And game in and game out, it seems like at least there's been a trend in the first half. We kind of play this. It's not. I don't want to use the aggressive term of a sound defense, but we play team defense in the first half. We at least slow them down a little bit, kind of make them hunt for shots, make dudes play difficult or take difficult shots. There's plenty of games this season where I think, gosh, that guy's just hitting. That's a tough shot. I can't hate on him. That's a tough shot. And we'll do that throughout the entirety of the first half. Get into a little foul trouble early, and then we're screwed from then on out.
It snowballs.
It snowballs. And in the second half, you get a restart. You think, okay, if we can come out here, play a sustainable brand of defense, a calm brand of defense, one where we look like we have at least a sliver of identity, we'll be fine. And then we start the first 3 minutes with 4 fouls. Because like what you said, Will, we can't stay in front of a traffic cone that's falling on its side. We have nobody on this roster who has the quickness or just the defensive mindset to get to a spot before their primary ball handler is. And we've seen it 3 times now this season where you looked decent in the first half on defense. You made them hunt tough shots. But in the second half, the coach, whether it's John Shire or it's Rick Barnes or it's Coach Cal, saw that, hey, we got one of the best guys on the floor. We're just going to take you one-on-one. We're going to go 5 out. We're just going to beat you up the dribble every time, force you to either foul or overcommit on a help, and then we're going to kill you from 3. Darius Acuff, great player, going to be a lottery pick, almost guaranteed. We have no way that can stop him. The only reason we're in that game is because Michael Brown just is one of the best players in college basketball. And then you have why am I blanking on dude's name from Tennessee?
Jacoby
Gillespie. You have Jacoby Gillespie and Nate Ament, who just torch us in one of Nate Ament's best games of the season, where we were never really in that game. We put ourselves way too much in a buffer zone. There's just no way of coming back from that. But once again, you basically let one guy go out and beat you single-handedly, which opens up the field for everyone else. It's the same presence of when you're playing football and you have just a great wide receiver 1. You draw so much attention that his supporting cast almost is easily able to beat you, and you're just in this constant loop of getting yourself back on defense. And then Duke. I mean, like you said, you have, oh my gosh, and he's not, like you said, he's not bad, he's not great, he's a good guard, he's a good ball handler, but this is a guy that you should not have allowed to get into easily double figures, 18 to 20 points on you just by your first step. Just by beating you off ball, it is almost impossible to win games when we have no on-ball defender that can even cause pressure on whoever's coming down the court against you. Last year, obviously, we had Chucky. That's a blessing, right? Like I said, ACC Defensive Player of the Year. We can't sit here and say we're going to get a Chucky Hepburn every season. That's just not going to happen. It's not realistic. But this team needs to understand that you're going to get put on an island out there. You got to put it on yourself to figure out, okay, we either need to communicate better on screens, we either need to run a more team brand of defense, whether it's, play like a man throughout the game, but then maybe throw a matchup zone in here just to kind of confuse the other team. Like, you don't have to go full on 2-3-3-1 3-1 the whole game and show your hand, but just to kind of confuse the defense, slow them down, and we just have not done that at all. It seems like, you said it already, this team's identity doesn't look fractured, it's non-existent, especially on the defensive end.
Yeah, and you make a great point because we talk about Pat use zone. Chris Mack even did. He used a 1-3-1, which did change the pace of several games against high-level opponents that we played in for the better. So I think Pat just needs to learn that his play style and his system is not always the answer, and sometimes you have to swallow your pride and do what's best for the situation. And I think he will learn that, but it's unfortunate that it's taking this much for that to happen. And kind of going off of what you were saying a minute ago about fouling, I saw this text from about 4 o'clock earlier. This guy said, "Can we talk about the officiating at the Yum? I pulled the trigger and bought season tickets this year, and our home games outside of UK have been so hard to watch. Yes, we played bad, but my God, the flow of the game is just ruined by the inconsistency of the officiating, and it's just not a fun in-game experience. I don't know if I'll be buying tickets again next year." He's right. There have been several games this year where the officiating has been objectively horrible. U of L's had a terrible whistle. But like you said, on the other hand,
we put ourselves in bad situations.
We put that on ourselves a lot of times. Have we had a lot of bad calls go against us this year? Of course we have. But on the other hand, we are just fouling aimlessly. We're just reaching in. it's so stupid. I mean, it's a lack of defensive awareness, positioning, uh, discipline, any way you want to describe it. It's a bad recipe for a successful team, and actually, it has allowed us or has prevented us from being successful this year. Because when we win the free throw battle, we tend to win the game, but when that doesn't happen, we're at risk of being blown out. So he makes a good point about the officiating. It has been bad, but we put ourselves in that position a lot. And like you mentioned, it's unacceptable and it needs to change. Otherwise, it's going to be more of the same going forward. And that just comes down to finding a defensive identity, which is what we've been talking about this whole time. We have to find defensive identity and increase our rating right now, because I'm shocked we're actually 37th. I feel like we're more in the 60 to 70 range, because maybe if we played the caliber of ACC teams for the entire season, we'd be right there, because whenever we play good competition, our defense just falls apart. So I'm curious to see what we do moving forward, but right now, to this point, it has been unacceptable.
That's funny you say that, because, like you said, our defensive efficiency rating right now, we're 37th in the country. We're about to go play Virginia Tech. Virginia Tech is listed at 58th. How do you think that we compare against a team like Virginia Tech in terms of defense? Like, do you think that those are – do you think that 58 is too high for them, or do you think it's too low?
I mean, they don't have great athletes. They're more of an offensive team anyways under Mike Young. That's what he's always been known for, is being an offensive guy. So I'm not shocked by that. But I imagine against us, if Michael Brown isn't playing, at least they'll play above that ranking. And in terms of how they're going to attack us offensively, they're going to use their size to put us in mismatched scenarios. And I don't know how we're going to counter that, or if we will counter that. So we'll see. But yeah, I feel like we should be towards the bottom half of the ACC in terms of defensive efficiency. It just maybe hasn't corrected to that point yet, but we'll see what we do about it.
We're about to go to break, so I want to get to some of these texts really quick. It says, a reason I have a hard time seeing us win at Duke, even with Michael, is I'm not sure if we will be able to handle a contentious road environment at ESPN's favorite school. I struggle with this as well. I don't think in the terms of it, just because it's Duke, or I think the environment will play a factor. Pat Kelsey teams throughout so far these past seasons, when true road games haven't looked great, especially in tough environments. Tennessee and Arkansas being, obvious standout games that we're talking about. I think that Michael Brown does play a role in this, in terms of this is a game that if we're all Louisville fans, we should be eyeing for a great return for, because, you're playing against Cam Boozer. He missed it last time. If Michael really wants to cement himself as a top 5, at least, lottery pick, this is the game you have to have circled on your calendar. Will, what do you think about this? Do you think that – are you coming in – I feel like normally when we look at games like this, when you're going to a historic venue against a really great basketball team, you get excited for the opportunity to win your game there. Are you feeling that this, so far right now at this Duke game, or are you feeling more of, maybe that solemn judgment kind of feel?
No, I'm actually excited, contrary to what you would probably think based on what I'm saying, but it's going to be a barometer for how the rest of your season is going to go. So if Michael's back, I give us a shot to win it. I would say the recipe for winning is to make 13 or more threes on 40 or less attempts. I know that's kind of specific, but we have to shoot well at a decent clip. It can't just be, we hit 13 threes, but we took 45 of them. No, you got to take probably around 35 and hit 13 or more. So we got to be able to make the three. We had to figure out a way to keep them out of the paint. I feel like we played Cam Boozer pretty well in the first game, honestly. I know he got his, but I was satisfied with how we played.
You shut down his cast around him for that most of the game.
Yeah, exactly. And I'm fine. If your approach is you make Cam Boozer just score 40 on you and you don't let anybody else win or win the game for them, I'm actually okay with that, honestly. What I'm not okay with is overhelping and not being able to stay in front of your man, which is what we were subjected to against Duke in the second half. So I don't think Michael coming back miraculously fixes that. That's more of a coaching staff thing. So the offense will be better against Duke if he plays, and I expect us to be in some sort of a shootout. That is, if we can figure out a way to get into the paint consistently and try to get to the free throw line. We almost got Cam Boozer in serious foul trouble, but we just
couldn't attack the paint effectively anymore in the second half. So it's an opportunity. I don't expect us to win. I'm not predicting a win. But if you want to get back into that top 4 seed range by tournament time, that's an opportunity you have to capitalize on.
It definitely is. I think that a lot of fans would agree with you. I think once it comes to game time, we're getting closer after Virginia Tech, depending on the outcome of that game. I think excitement for this new game, especially in terms of Mike Hill Brown's availability, I think we'll all get on the side that we're pretty excited for this game. We got to go to break. We'll come back with one final segment here on the Mike Rutherford Show. Stick with us on 96.1 FM, The Big X.
Beat your hot the Bible if God
some football talk going on here with our sir, Mr. Will Wigington. Texture says, as for tournament location, I would say if we were 4 or 5, we might be headed to Tampa or Philadelphia. A week 2 might send them to either St. Louis or Greenville. A 3 could send them to either St. Louis, Greenville, or Buffalo. I'm not liking any of those locations.
I'd maybe go to St. Louis, but that's about it.
Yeah, I don't. Tournament seating, and I don't know. I feel like we kind of get lucky as Louisville fans a lot of times. I feel like we've gotten to see a lot of early round matchups for Louisville basketball, and at least in our lifetime, Louisville's always been kind of the Louisville and Kentucky have usually always been kind of in the centerfold of college basketball, so we've kind of gotten blessed in terms of they want the fans out there, they want to sell the tickets, so they usually try and accommodate both teams. I really don't like those locations. I want to be able to go, like you said, St. Louis probably the only one I would look towards. I mean, going to Tampa to watch a Louisville game would be really fun, but I don't know if I could financially talk myself into doing that.
That, and is it really worth it if you're going to spend all that money just to watch us lose? Who knows?
Come on, man.
Well, I'm just saying.
Come on.
St. Louis, it's fine because, it's only about a 4 to 5 hour trip. But going all the way to Tampa wouldn't be that fun. I know the feeling of how brutal it was to come home after losing the tournament to Creighton last year, and that was only in Lexington.
Yeah, I had to deal with it too. It was awful.
How horrible that drive home was. That was only an hour and 15 minutes. I can't imagine you tack 4 times on that. No.
Yeah, I think the worst feeling ever was last season for football. So every year, my father, my brother, and I all go to an away football game every single season. Last year, we went to Notre Dame. And the drive back from Notre Dame was absolutely miserable, knowing that that game was literally in the palm of our hands 5 or 6 times, and we just shot ourselves in the foot over and over and over again. I mean, you had the Tyler Shuck fumble. You had the miracle interception that Ja'Cory Brooks the ball hit his knees, pops up.
Yeah.
And then you have the one that was genuinely on, you're like, this is on us, the special teams muffed punt that we fumbled, and then they got on like the 4-yard line. It was like, oh my gosh, we gave these guys the opportunity to win the game 7 times, and we still made it a 1-score game and fought back to the end. You really thought that, Jesus Christ, if we really won that game, one, you possibly hold Notre Dame out of the playoff, which puts Marcus Freeman's job in jeopardy. You think of where Louisville could have gone later, then maybe they use that as momentum. They don't get an early loss in their schedule. I know their defense kind of seriously held them back towards the end of the year, but gosh, man, I know the feeling I had driving home. So you're right. Maybe that would suck. That would really suck if you got another 8-9 matchup against a really good 8 or 9 team.
Maybe you could justify it in Tampa because you're on the beach or you're at least in the Bay Area, so you can enjoy kind of the nice weather and the Florida scene. But Greenville or Buffalo,
no.
Or Philly, no thank you.
It's freezing cold. You know what I mean? Oh, no. I don't know if I'd even care for the Tampa one either, because if you lose, you got to think the team you're playing is also reveling in the winning aspect. They're going to the beach. They're celebrating. They're the ones who got the tents and the flags all out, screaming, cheering. They're going to go to the second week, and they're like, oh, y'all are the Louisville fans, huh?
Yeah, so maybe just stay away until, say, if we did make the second weekend, there is a region, I think it's the Midwest that's in Chicago. That'd be fun.
That would be fun. I would love to go to Chicago.
St. Patrick's weekend, maybe.
Ooh.
That could be a nice setup.
Okay.
Well,
I don't know how many Louisville fans actually make it into the game on St. Patrick's weekend, but
yeah, and the same texter who was talking about those sites just texted back in and said, a note about the Creighton game was we previously lost to them in the first weekend in the same tournament region back in 1999. Lenardi today has us as a 6th seed in St. Louis facing San Diego State, who Kelsey met in the first round as Charleston coach back in 2023. I remember that game. It was really close. San Diego State won and ultimately lost in the championship game. So I was actually in New York watching that. Really good game. And then Creighton, yeah, I can't stand Creighton. I know we lost to them in 1999. I wasn't around for that. I was born in 2000. But when we hosted the tournament in 2023 that had San Diego State in the championship game, they were in that region along with Creighton, Princeton, and Alabama. And the Creighton fans, because I went to both games, the Creighton fans were so absurdly obnoxious, like actually insane. I had no problems with any of the other 3 fan bases. And then, of course, we played them in the tournament again and lose in a semi-blowout fashion. So it sucks that they're not good this year because I was kind of hoping in my mind that we would maybe have a shot at them again, but I guess we'll have to wait years for that. But yeah, is that Michael Stallworth?
Yes, I think it is.
Always good with the facts, man. So yeah, we'll see about the sites. I mean, I don't know. I just want to get into the tournament and then have a favorable matchup because I do. It's as doom and gloom as I am sometimes. I still think that we can turn this around. Also, he just said second weekend regionals, Chicago for the Midwest, Washington for the East. I assume Washington, D.C., where Kenai Roots is from, Houston in the South, and then San Jose in the West. So I'd be cool with either the Midwest or the East. I would want to stay away from Houston and San Jose because if you go to Houston, you're probably going to play Houston, and I don't want any piece of that. And then San Jose, you play Gonzaga, and with their big men, no thanks. So kind of just projecting out a little bit. So
no, I mean it's a good point. This team is really subject to poor matchups, and I think that like, it goes back to the point we made 10 times just on this show alone. That's roster construction. That's you kind of put all your chips in one bag, and that's honestly 3-point shooting 45 3-pointers a game, hoping you make 20 of them. We did see a little bit, like I keep going back to Pitt, but we saw some positive things in Pitt. The one thing that I pointed out is I know that for 90% of the college basketball landscape, 29 threes is a lot. I understand that. But making 15 of those, and we're a team that shoots 40 sometimes. If we're really feeling it one night, or we get stuck in too bad of a hole, we got to shoot ourselves out. We'll get to 40. We'll get to that 45 number. We shot 29 threes, made 15 of them, and we still did a great job of touching the paint. We still did a great job of running genuine sets on offense. I feel like that spells positivity moving down forward. I really hope we keep pushing that towards tournament time. But to go back on what the texter says, I'm taking Chicago every time in that list. I think Washington, D.C. would be cool. That's not, like, too ridiculous of a trip, I guess. It's not Chicago short, but...
No, it's about a 9-hour drive. D.C. is an incredible city, too. I love it. So that would be fun just for kind of like a Tampa-esque thing. And then text it back. For all we know, our ex-coach Rick Pitino himself might face Houston come March. Well, that's if he can make the tournament himself, because St. John's, besides Kentucky, well, actually, it might just be St. John's now, even though they've won a couple games in a row. They might be the most disappointing team in college basketball with their roster talent, and their production based on that is pretty pathetic. But one thing I wanted to mention, because you talked about 3-pointers per game, we're third in the country in 3-point attempts per game. And looking at the top 25 in terms of 3-point attempts per game, I would say there's only a few tournament teams in there. Alabama's first in the country. I would say they're a shoe-in. Us, Wisconsin, they'll probably make it. Nebraska is 11th. They're probably, they're in play for a 1 seed. Texas A&M at 15th. Buckyball, obviously, they're really good, honestly. They're actually a sneaky team in the SEC that I don't think people are paying attention to. And then besides that, Texas Tech is 23rd in the country. They'll probably be a top 5 seed. So not a lot of really good teams take a lot of threes because it's kind of a niche play style. I'm surprised BYU actually isn't in here, but they really just play a fast pace. They don't shoot a ton of threes. So, yeah, I do think that if we face a team, it is all matchup based, like everybody says in March. But if we play a team that is more finesse, kind of like Indiana, for example, we're just better than them. And our style of play allows us to do what we want. And same with Indiana. They don't really hinder us in what we do. Alabama, the same thing would happen there. Like, there are a lot of teams that we could potentially face in the tournament that I would pick us to win against, but there are as many, if not more, that I would pick us to lose against. So it might not even be necessarily location-based, how we're talking about right now. It might just be like last season, we were terrified of Creighton for good reason. And we're just going to have to see where we're set. But, I mean, we could get a pretty good crowd in Chicago. I don't think we could for D.C., though, or any of the other regions.
I think it would all depend on how our season ends.
Yeah.
Maybe how on the ACC tournament looks. I think that we definitely could travel to somewhere like Washington, D.C., but I agree with you that Chicago is a lot more attainable, and that's more like no matter what happens, we'd have a pretty good crowd out there. While we're talking, just now, Alberto Mendoza just signed with Georgia Tech.
Literally about to say that.
Just signed with Georgia Tech. That's going to be a big grab for them. Do we believe in Georgia Tech next season? Do we believe that like the system they're running? I know they've gotten better year in and year out. Do we believe that that's a genuine, bona fide college football playoff team next season?
No, I mean I like Brent Key as a coach. I mean he's exactly what Georgia Tech needs. They've improved every year he's been there. They really should have won the Pop-Tarts Bowl, but they choked, in my opinion. But they're just losing so much that I'm not going to project them to do really much of anything until I see what they have in practice. I think he's a good coach. They have a lot of good things going for them right now, but it's a wait and see with Georgia Tech.
I can see that. I want to kind of shift gears here for a little bit, and I want to get on some Louisville football talk. In the past week, really, we've seen some pretty big hits in the transfer portal on the defensive end. I know a lot of Louisville fans have been asking for that. We kind of bolstered our offense really early, got some really big grabs, but especially in the defensive secondary, we've really kind of filled out here this week. On January 18th, we get cornerback Bryson Stott from Elon. January 18th, on the same day, we also get the safety Caleb Beasley from Tennessee. That's a really big grab. The 17th, we picked up the center from Evan Wibberley. He originally played at WKU, played a season at UK. I think he only played 4 games for UK, so not a lot of production there. January 16th, we grabbed safety TJ Banks from Ole Miss, another great grab. And on January 15th, we grabbed defensive tackle Joshua Donald from Southern University at App State. How do you feel about moving forward? I know we took a little bit to really – I know we got a few pieces here in the secondary early on, but how do you feel now with the transfer portal kind of coming to a close, getting to the latter end of it? What would – out of a to F or a 1 to 10, whichever one you want, what do you think Louisville's transfer portal class is right now at this key moment?
I mean, relative to what we usually do, I would give it a 9. I mean, we're 4th, I think, in the country in transfer portal rankings, top in the ACC. And if you look at the players we're getting taller and we're getting bigger in the trenches. Kind of a point of emphasis for the staff. I'll just read off a few. In terms of the O lineman, you said Evan Wibberley. He's 6'5", 270. At D lineman, we have a guy 6'2", 300 pounds. Another one 6'1", 300 pounds. Let's see. Tyler Thompson, the edge, 6'4", 225. Had the tackle transfer from South Carolina. He's 6'6", 300 pounds. Our tight ends that we got are both 6'5 plus. Another D lineman, 6'3". Another tackle, 6'3", 315. They're all tall. They're all 6'2 plus and around 300 pounds unless they're an edge player. So that tells me that the staff is really prioritizing big offensive linemen to produce holes for our running backs. I think we're going to be a primarily running team next season, probably 60-40 run-to-pass ratio. And Kienholz is a guy that can run the ball as well. We don't really know what he can do in the passing game yet, but he does have the ability to be a dual-threat quarterback. So I think we're going to try to embrace that style and then use the speedy receivers that we got in the portal to just be a big play threat at every single snap. So, and then on the defensive line, we really invested in pass rush, which I love to see because the best teams in the country are ones that can get home with a 4-man rush. Indiana could do it. Miami could do it. So if we want to compete consistently against the best teams and also take care of business against lower-level competition, you got to have those dominant guys that no matter who they're lined up against, they can win their one-on-ones. So I love the way that this staff has prioritized the trenches. I think that we're taking a risk with Kienholz at quarterback, but we're just going to have to trust it, I guess. We have made solid investments in the secondary and at linebacker, and I'm cool with the wide receivers that we got. And I don't think that we're done in the portal necessarily, but I do think that all the big hits we might be done with. But I'm very satisfied with this class, and it makes me really excited for the potential for next season.
I'm right there with you. I love that we focused on size, and I know your key points were on the D-line and the offensive line, but we've also focused on size in the secondary itself. Mm-hmm. I mean, I pointed out safety Caleb Beasley. He's 6'1", 200 pounds from Tennessee, played 2 seasons for the Volunteers. He still has 2 years of eligibility remaining. This is a guy who, for the past 2 years, has played legitimate snaps. He had 24 tackles in 2024. He had 24 tackles in 2025 with 2 pass breakups and 1 fumble recovery for a touchdown. This is a guy who gets genuine snaps, who plays genuine minutes. And then on the other end, you get the safety TJ Banks from Ole Miss, another 6'3", 200-pound safety. These are guys who are going to lay the wood. These are guys who, when you're playing a tight-knit defense, who I know we haven't figured out who the defensive coordinator is yet. Mike is keeping that from all of us, so none of us have any inside information. If anyone out there wants to know, he won't tell any of us. This is one where when you're looking at the roster, you got to feel like whoever is leading the charge is somebody these guys are buying into, because these are not just small dudes or from other like mid-major colleges we're bringing in to kind of just add depth pieces. Our depth pieces are getting SEC Big Ten reps. Like, these guys are getting genuine reps in serious college football matchups. TJ Banks, like I said, 6'3", 200 pounds. He also has 2 years of eligibility. He appeared in 14 games, got 20 tackles and 11 solo stops. I can't really pinpoint the area of this transfer portal class I like the most. I think if I had to, you kind of already touched on it, and that's the defensive ends. That's the quarterback rush area. That's the edge rushing group in this game. You bring back Cleve Lubin. Arguably, you could make a case for Cleve Lubin coming back as the biggest returner against Isaac Brown, and then you bolster that with you bring back AJ Green as well, a guy who really helps that edge rushing class, and then you bring in Tyler Thompson. I think, what was he, 4th in the ACC in sacks?
He was definitely top 5.
He was easily top 5, finished, I think, with 7.5 or 8 sacks on the season. That's an all-ACC player. That guy, I mean, this is going to be one where, I mean, you already said it, the best, in the era of college football we're in and where we're moving towards, if you want to be successful on the defensive end, you can't just sit back in zone coverage anymore. You got to play man. You got to get to the quarterback. You got to make the quarterback uncomfortable. Quarterbacks are becoming smarter and more talented year in and year out. You have to force them to turn the ball over. You have to get under their skin. You have to make them uncomfortable to have success on the defensive end. And it seems like Jeff Brom and the staff are really going heavy on the defensive end in this class, which is surprising, because when we looked at the beginning of this class, you know, with Trey Richardson coming in, with Isaac Brown returning, with Trayshawn Hurry returning, and all of the bolstering of the offensive line, there was a little bit of me that was nervous in there that's saying, yeah, I love the pieces we're getting. I think that I think Keen Holst is going to have one of the best running back rooms in the country again. I think he's going to have one of the best offensive lines in the ACC. I think he's going to have a bona fide wide receiver one with deep playability. But what are we doing in the secondary? What are we doing in the linebacker room? I know we got Antonio Watts coming back, and Sanquon Clark is also coming back, so that helps you out. TJ Capers, I think, is also coming back. That helps you out as well. But it was a little nerve-wracking to see us push that back so far to the end. Do you think, looking back on it, would you have preferred us hit the transfer portal a little harder on the defensive end earlier, or are you satisfied with how the defensive side turned out?
No, I'm very satisfied with how it turned out. I think that we prioritized what we needed to without an explicit defensive coordinator, and we got back several of the major pieces that we wanted to retain. And even a guy like Ben Perry and Xavier Watt, or Xavier
I didn't
Watts,
mention Ben
Antonio
Perry.
Watts.
Forgot about he's coming back.
Ben Perry, I mean, he transferred away to UCLA last season, didn't play because of an injury. Now he's back. You have Antonio Watts. TJ Capers will be coming back. And while our defensive line depth is kind of, at least on the interior, needing to be replaced, I feel really good about who all that we brought in, because we brought in star-level players, but also quality depth. And that's what's really necessary, because now we have 3 edge rushers that could start on pretty much any team in the ACC, in my opinion. And like you mentioned with the secondary, we got bigger in the secondary. We're going to be a lot more physical. Maybe we'll play man coverage. Who knows who the defensive coordinator is going to be and what their style of play is. We'll find out a lot more after that point. But we're not going to have a bad defense because we don't have the talent. And I can confidently say the same thing offensively. I think that we are establishing a true identity this season that will hopefully lead to more consistency. And let's just hope that the play calling stays that way as well on both sides of the ball. And I think this is a roster that can compete with most teams in the ACC and hopefully in the country.
I think so as well. I think that there's a lot of positivity. I think there's a lot to be excited about coming this next football season. The only thing, and we've mentioned it multiple times, that I am weary of is, it's on Jeff Brom now. Mm-hmm. He was allowed to basically pick his roster. He was allowed to select his guys. He was allowed to be selective in selecting this roster in terms of, we have the financial support. He got what he wanted. He has the resources he asked for. It's on Jeff Brom now to not drop a game to Stanford, drop a game to Cal, drop a home game to Virginia you should have won. It's on him to not only win the big games that we're paying you the big bucks for, but to keep your guys locked in and week out. You saw this year with Indiana. It's discipline that wins these games. When you're the cleanest football team out there, you win these games. And in Jeff Brohm's tenure, unfortunately, we have never been the cleanest team. Before we get out of here, we got a couple of minutes here before we got to head out. I want to look over the college basketball games for tonight. I want to get your picks on them. So the big ones are we have LSU and Florida. Florida's a 16.5-point favorite. Do we think LSU has any chance? Or do you think Florida covers in this game?
I don't know if they cover. I think they win without a doubt, though. So, yeah, let's see. There's actually a great slate tonight. So I'll just give my top three big ones real quick. One is underrated. It's UCF at Iowa State.
I have that one, yep.
UCF has been very quiet this season, but they're 14-3. They're pretty good. Iowa State is having their classic January falter. They just got demolished by Kansas on the road and lost handily to Cincinnati, of all teams, on the road. They're 13.5-point favorites at home against UCF. I do not think that UCF is going to win this game, but I think if you tease this line up to 15, maybe 15.5, you will cover. Besides that, we talked about NC State and Clemson earlier. Maybe not the marquee matchup that people were thinking about, but I think this has huge ramifications for the ACC's potential to increase their amount of NCAA tournament teams. Clemson is only a 2.5-point favorite at home against NC State. Although I would want NC State to win this game, I do think Clemson is going to take care of business. I would just go their money line on this one. And then the last one is Vanderbilt and Arkansas. This game is going to be a shootout. Probably it's at Arkansas. Vanderbilt is actually a 1.5-point favorite. I really love Vandy's makeup. I think they're super underrated at 15th in the country and 6-2. Arkansas is coming off a loss at Georgia in a tough game. I would expect Arkansas to come back and respond and win this game. So I would take Arkansas money line. I would take Clemson money line against NC State, and then UCF plus like 15 or 15.5. And that should be a pretty good parlay right there.
I like those picks. I like those. I have Vanderbilt in Arkansas as well. That game's being played at Arkansas, correct?
Yep.
Okay, that's what I thought. I know they have it. I got it at minus 1.5. I don't know if it's changed or not since then. The Vandy and Arkansas and UCF and Iowa State are really similar games to me. I know you pointed that one out earlier. Iowa State kind of on a skid right now. Vandy on their skid right now. My question to you is this the opportunity for Vandy to kind of get a get-right game, or do you think that Arkansas is going to cement themselves as a real true contender at the SEC and more of a powerhouse this season?
Well, the problem is they're both in a get-right game scenario, and Arkansas really needs it more, in my opinion. I know Vanderbilt, they just had a tough loss at home against Florida. That was a great game, though. Arkansas, they're only 13-5. They're 20th in the country. They kind of faltered a little bit the past couple weeks. A home game against a top 20 team, a quad one opportunity. You got to take care of business. I do think also that Arkansas' style of play pertains nicely in this. Vanderbilt's going to want to run and gun. Arkansas will embrace that, but they have the defensive talent to really bother Vanderbilt. So I think both teams do definitely need a win, obviously, but I think Arkansas is going to play with a bit more desperation, and they're going to have that crowd behind them, which is an incredibly tough environment to play in.
I love it. I love it. A great time with you, Will, having you on. It's been a lot of fun. Nice little hour and a half of radio we got to do together there. If you guys want to hear Will and I talk some more here this week, we're going to do our One Shining podcast. Thank you for Will for coming up with that title. We cover everything college basketball. Well, that'll be coming on later this week. Will, I appreciate you coming out, my man.
Yes, sir. Thank you for having me on as always.
No problem, of course. Well, this has been the Mike Rutherford Show, the Matt and Will's edition. We'll see you guys tomorrow on the Big X.
Industrial HVAC, electrical, plumbing, and refrigeration needs. Call United Mechanical at 502-339-1133. Go Cards.
Hey there, New Albany. This is Mayor Jeff Gahan. It's another year here in our River City, and what better time to show your support for our